Chapter 16:29. In front of him, the little Kuan Pung began to devour the eggshell. With every bite, its aura rose by a notch. It didn't take long for it to ascend to the transcendent realm's second level. Yi Shiwen was speechless when he saw this. Although Kuan Pung was talented, but this kind of method of improvement made him completely speechless. This was a prodigal thing. Even he was a little jealous of this little Kuan Pung. It could advance its realm just by eating. Many people would be envious if this was spread out. Not only was it a waste of countless resources, but it was also necessary for ordinary people to have sufficient realm comprehension if they wanted to advance. Otherwise, it was impossible to advance at all. However, this Kuan Peng's advancement was as simple as eating and drinking. It advanced on the spot. In the past 10 years, Yi Shiwen had also looked up a lot of information about Kuan Peng. He knew that Kuan Peng, like other ominous beasts, inherited knowledge through their bloodline. They were born with the understanding of martial arts from their ancestors. So, before they reached a certain realm, they didn't even need to comprehend. Just by devouring treasures, their cultivation could skyrocket without any sequelae. Yi Shiwen really envied his talent. This kind of innate advantage was not something that Yi Shiwen could be envious of. For example, Yi Shukong was the son of God. There were almost no obstacles in his cultivation. This was also where Yi Shiwen could not compare with him. After a while, Kuan Peng had completely devoured his eggshell. Its cultivation directly soared to the transcendent realm 5th level peak, and it was the kind of existence that could easily defeat those in the same realm. Yi Shiwen needed a deep accumulation to achieve this, but Kuan Peng could do it easily. After devouring the eggshell, Kuan Peng happily flew around Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen could not care about Kuan Peng at this time. He was completely immersed in cultivation. He had already stepped into the peak of the 6th celestial realm. He could have stepped into the 7th celestial realm long ago, but he needed to accumulate a deeper foundation. Because of this, the realm barrier that could have been easily broken through became even more difficult to overcome. Around his body, the 5 dragon veins turned into 5 huge dragon shadows, constantly spewing Lingqi into his body. Countless powers were constantly emerging from his body. A huge ancient tree was constantly sprinkling 7-colored divine light and was constantly enveloping Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was always in a state of clarity and tranquility. The page of the ancient god scripture also began to emit the power of the gods. It was as if a god was reciting the scripture, holy and solemn. There were also the words martial, fighting, and seal all operating at once. In order to break through into the 7th heavenly layer of celestial being realm, Yi Shiwen had already stopped at nothing. It was he who made the barrier of the 6th heavenly layer of celestial being realm incomparably deep. If he was unable to break through, it would become a situation of spinning a cocoon around himself. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. One had to pay a certain price for whatever kind of power one wanted to obtain. Bit by bit, all of them began to operate. The 5 dragon veins formed a 5-chi imperial formation around his body, condensing countless Lingqi into a long river and instilling it into his body. The powerful power made the entire number 1 secret realm tremble. Time seemed to have stopped. The entire number 1 secret realm was silent. In addition to Yi Shiwen's closed-door training, Yulian was also in closed-door training to digest the power of this dragon vein. Tianyuan Mirror was also madly absorbing the power of that dragon vein under the influence of Yi Mo's subconscious. Kuan Peng was very bored and began to circle around Yi Shiwen, but it soon found that it was not interesting at all and began to cry continuously. Although he was still young, he already had the awe-inspiring aura of a future overlord of the sky and the ocean. Around him, countless laws of wind and water condensed, and with a casual opening of his mouth, countless laws of wind turned into blades of air that filled the sky and flew out. This was its innate magical power, and it almost didn't need anyone to teach it. It was completely self-taught. Unlike ordinary people who first learn martial arts moves, Kunping was born to fight with the law. Compared with ordinary people, its starting point was really much higher. If Yi Shiwen had not forcibly intercepted it, according to its normal development, It was afraid that it would be born as a celestial realm fierce beast, absolutely able to look down on many fierce beasts, and ranked as one of the top 10 fierce beasts of the ancient times. Soon, this Kunping was tired of playing. Although it was born with wisdom and was subdued by Yi Shiwen, it was still a child after all. It was unusually playful, and very soon it got tired of playing and began to rush out of the number 1 secret realm. Although Yi Shiwen had reset up a defensive formation in the number 1 secret realm, it was only for outsiders, so this Kunping easily passed through the formation and flew to the outside world. Just like other newborns, it was full of curiosity about this world. His speed was extremely fast, and he, who possessed the law of wind, could be said to be the representative of the law of wind. Whoosh! 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 Its figure began to flicker continuously in the number 1 secret realm. In the number 1 secret realm, although there were many law manifestation realm and even half-step celestial realm experts, no one could see through the flying figure of Kunping. Not even their spirit could capture it. It was like a spirit in the wind. Although it could not be as domineering as an adult Kunping, there was no doubt that it was definitely counted as an expert. At this moment, a group of people came in from the void. The person in the lead was dressed in a white robe, with an arrogant look on his face. He directly stepped on the air and entered the Yi clan's most mysterious number 1 secret realm. Behind him, many people followed behind him. There were 2 people in the lead. One was a young man in a blue robe, standing with his hands behind his back. At a young age, he was like a peerless overlord. On the other side of him was actually the top expert among the younger generation of Yi clan, Yi Kuang. Behind Yi Kuang, there were also many experts from Yi clan. Beside the young man in the blue robe, there were also many experts, but they were not experts from Yi clan. This is the number 1 secret realm that has been rumored for a long time in your Yi clan. I don't think it's that great. The young man in the blue robe said arrogantly. His strength was so strong that with just a glance, he could see the entire human secret realm. These are the new talents of our Yi clan. The real experts are still in the Earth secret realm and the human secret realm. Yi Kuang's expression changed slightly. Then he gritted his teeth and said, compared to 10 years ago, Yi Kuang, who had stepped into the celestial realm, already had the demeanor of a peerless overlord. He was completely different from before. Now he could be considered to have completely grown up. Even his master, Yi Zhen-mo, had the intention to let him take over the position of the demon-suppressing city lord. Yi Zhen-mo had not mentioned this before because he hoped that Yi Kuang could go further and compete for the position of the clan leader. With his talent and cultivation that was far ahead of everyone, there was still hope. But who knew that later, he would be captured by Yi Shiwen, causing his reputation to plummet. After that, Yi Shukong was far ahead of everyone else, directly stepping into the celestial realm in one go. Instead, he was one step faster than Yi Kuang, whose cultivation was originally stronger than his. That wasn't all. Yi Qiong, who had always been behind him, had actually stepped into the heaven realm just like him. Whether it was Yi Shukong or Yi Qiong, they were all proud disciples of the clan leader. No matter which one of them, they had the right to inherit the position. If Yi Kuang could firmly suppress everyone else, then it would be fine. But now, Yi Kuang did not have an overwhelming advantage. This made it even more difficult for him to inherit the position of the clan leader. Not to mention Yi Shukong, just Yi Qiong alone was not inferior to Yi Kuang. The possibility of Yi Kuang inheriting the position had become uncertain. Even if he had stepped into the celestial realm and become an overlord, the situation was not as good as before. In the Yi clan, Yi Zhen-mo definitely did not have as many connections as the clan leader. Under the same choice, everyone would still choose Yi Qiong, who had the same ambition, over Yi Kuang, who came from the demon-suppressing city. Yi Zhen-mo had finally become indifferent to all of this in the past few years. He had plans to let Yi Kuang take over the position of the demon-suppressing city lord. He also planned to enter a state of closed-door cultivation. Under the background of the demon race invasion, it could be said that even the overlord of the celestial realm had to be careful. If they were not careful, they would fall. Is that so? What is in the earth's secret realm and the heaven's secret realm? The youth in the azure blue robe smiled in contempt. I heard that the Yi clan has a few experts. Why haven't I seen them? Especially that god child who claims to have the bloodline of the gods. Didn't you say that he is comparable to the 5 giants of your human race? If it is possible, I hope to have a spar with him. Junior brother Yi Shukong is currently in a distant space and can't return for the time being. In the future, you will definitely have a chance to fight. Yi Kwang's expression changed as he said, when had he ever been looked down upon like this? Even the 5 giants of this generation of the human race didn't dare to look down on him like this. He can't return for the time being? Or is he afraid of us? When he heard that we were coming, he ran away in fear. The youth in the azure blue robe grinned and said, the corner of his mouth had a hint of disdain and coldness. His originally handsome smile looked a little ferocious at this moment. Yi Kwang was so angry that his face turned red. He scolded, Beishan Shui, don't go too far. Chapter 1630. Too much? How am I too much? The blue-robed young man grinned and said, I am indeed very interested in your god's child. For so many years, I have never seen a god. I have always heard that one of our ancestors had killed a god. Although I dare not compare myself to our ancestor, I am more than capable of killing a god's child. As soon as he said this, not only Yi Kwang, but even the Yi clan's experts behind Yi Kwang suddenly became furious. Among them, there were many old acquaintances of Yi Shiwen, including Yi Shui and a few others. Back then, they were all competing with Yi Shiwen in the same generation. Now, so many years had passed. Although they were not as dazzling as Yi Shiwen and others, they were also one of the new stars that Yi clan had cultivated with great effort. In these years, they had also crossed the 7th level of celestial being realm and became a big shot. In recent years, the laws of heaven and earth seemed to have changed. Originally, many people could not enter the 7th level of celestial realm. At this time, many people suddenly broke through to the 7th level of celestial realm. Many people of the older generation and the younger generation took advantage of this opportunity to break through to the 7th level of celestial realm. What? You are still not convinced? Beishan Shui sneered and said, if you want to talk about the most outstanding bloodline in this world, there is probably no one more superior than Brother Feng. Even the so-called gods are no exception. At this time, he looked at the white-robed young man. The white-robed young man just smiled slightly, a bit arrogant, but did not say much. It seemed that he disdained this kind of comparison. You're all too stubborn. Bloodlines and whatnot are only innate conditions. If you don't work hard later on, whatever bloodlines you have will all be wasted. The decline of the desolate antiquity over these years is not unrelated to this. The white-robed Brother Feng said indifferently. When the Yi clan heard this, not only did they not agree with this seemingly reasonable statement, on the contrary, they were somewhat angry. This was a blatant slap in the Yi clan's face. Their Yi clan did not spread the word that Yi Shukong had the bloodline of gods and was the god's child. Just this kind of god's bloodline alone was a symbol of nobility. If he directly came here, bloodline was nothing. If he did not work hard, he would be worse than an ordinary person. At this time, they couldn't help but curse the white-robed young man in their hearts. If you didn't have a good background, who knows where you'd be playing in the mud right now? Doesn't it seem like your waist is hurting when you say this? However, they didn't dare to say it out loud. Even with their pride as the top geniuses of the Yi clan, they didn't dare to say it out loud because the identity of the white-robed young man before them was too shocking. It was so shocking that even Yi Kwang, the new hegemon of the Yi clan, and Beishan Shui, the new peerless hegemon of the Beishan clan, could only obediently accompany them. Let's go. There's nothing interesting here. Let's go directly to the Heaven's Secret Realm and have a look. After seeing this place, I have a rough idea. The white-robed young man said, That's it then. I hope Brother Feng can tell us more about the current situation of the ancient wilderness. In fact, we are the front line against the demon race. If we fall, I'm afraid. Yi Kwang said, Are you threatening me? Brother Feng glanced at Yi Kwang coldly and said, Of course not. Yi Kwang smiled faintly. He also had his own pride. Being looked down upon like this, he was already full of anger. If it wasn't for the identity of the person in front of him, and if it was Beishan Shui, he would have already beaten him up. Then don't say any more. I know what I should say, Brother Feng said. Inadvertently, Brother Feng glanced at Yi Kuang and said, I heard that in your Yi clan, there is a person named Yi Shiwen. Hearing Yi Shiwen's name, the complexion of Yi Kuang and the others slightly changed. 10 years had passed. For many people, perhaps many Yi family members had gradually forgotten the shock and glory that Yi Shiwen had created in the past. He was the top of the top 100 list and the champion of the Imperial Court competition. In this era where geniuses were emerging in large numbers, he had been quickly forgotten. Many people might be able to recall Yi Shiwen's name from their dusty memories, but it was just a recollection. They didn't feel much. At this time, when his peers had all stepped into the 7th level of the Sky Realm, and his former opponents and defeated opponents had all stepped into the Sky Realm, he had been living in seclusion and hadn't been heard of for a long time. Soon, no one paid attention to him. Although he had won the championship of the Imperial Court hegemony, many people knew that in the end, Yi Shiwen had relied on the help of a Sky Realm Master to defeat the current 5 tycoons of the Imperial Court. It was not a reflection of his strength. If they really fought, Yi Shiwen might not be a match for the 5 tycoons. Moreover, many people knew that 10 years ago, Yi Shiwen was merely at the 6th heavenly layer of Celestial Being Realm. Even if his battle prowess could blow up the experts of the 9th heavenly layer of Celestial Being Realm, it couldn't hide the fact that he was merely a warrior of the 6th heavenly layer of Celestial Being Realm. Now only 10 years had passed. If he wanted to go from the 6th level of the Sky Realm to the 9th level of the Sky Realm, or even to the Sky Realm, that was simply impossible. The lack of cultivation level used to be his advantage, allowing him to quickly catch up to others. But now, it had become his fatal disadvantage, making him unable to catch up to others. In addition, there hadn't been any news of him in the past 10 years, which made many people think that he had fallen. Even if he could one day step into the Sky Realm, it would be many years later. At least for the time being, he had been forgotten by everyone. But to the Yi family members present now, it was different. Most people had only heard of Yi Shiwen's legends and hadn't seen Yi Shiwen's true strength. But they had truly experienced the era when Yi Shiwen dominated. Among them, some were Yi Shiwen's friends, some were Yi Shiwen's enemies, and some were defeated by Yi Shiwen. To them, Yi Shiwen's name had a completely different weight and status. Even if there hadn't been any news of him in the past 10 years, no one dared to underestimate him. If the 17 dragon veins were fully utilized, to what extent could Yi Shiwen improve? It was simply unimaginable, especially Yi Kuang. The matter of being captured by Yi Shiwen 10 years ago had become a shame that he couldn't wash away in this life. Even if he stepped into the Sky Realm, it was still the same. From his master Yi Zhenemo, Yi Kuang knew that Yi Shiwen had a Sky Realm spirit guarding him at all times. Even his master might not be her opponent. So he gave up on the idea of finding Yi Shiwen after stepping into the Sky Realm. But now that Brother Feng mentioned Yi Shiwen, it still made his heart skip a beat. There is indeed such a person. I don't know how Brother Feng knew. Yi Kuang paused and replied. Brother Feng sneered, looking slightly amused, then said, How did you know? This Yi Shiwen, I should say, is also very famous in your Yi family. He is indeed a bit famous, Yi Kuang said. Not just a bit famous. Back then, he was the champion of your human race's royal court competition, and I also heard that Yi Kuang, you were captured by him in one fell swoop. The 4 of you together were actually no match for him. At this time, Beishan Shui said in a strange tone. It caused a bunch of experts behind him to laugh out loud. If it was under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have the guts to mock a celestial realm overlord. That would be no different from asking to die. But at this time, following behind Beishan Shui, they were unscrupulous. Moreover, there was Brother Feng here, so what did they have to be afraid of? Yi Kuang's face turned green and then white. That matter was his greatest humiliation, and not only did Beishan Shui mention it again, but on the contrary, in such a strange tone, it was simply a slap in his face. Oh, I didn't expect him to have some ability. This is a little surprising, Brother Feng said with a cold smile. Yi Kuang looked at this Brother Feng strangely. Could it be that this Brother Feng actually knew Yi Shiwen? And from his tone, it seemed that he didn't get along with Yi Shiwen. If it was in the past, he might have the thought of provoking this brother Feng to get rid of Yi Shiwen. But now that he no longer wanted to fight for the position of the family head, he no longer had the thought of getting rid of dissidents. Yi Shiwen was now almost like a useless person and had not stepped into the Sky Realm, so it was impossible for him to be his opponent. Even if he got rid of him, there was still Yi Qiong and Yi Shukong, so it was not his turn at all. Moreover, this matter concerned the Yi family's face, so his attitude was naturally different. I don't know where he is now. Don't tell me that he is also in a distant space, or else I will fall out with you, Brother Feng said coldly, and there was a wild aura in his tone. Of course not, it's just that. Yi Kuang looked at this Brother Feng with an ugly expression. Did this Brother Feng want to turn the tables? Bring me there. I want to see this Yi Shiwen now. Who is he? Brother Feng said indifferently. I can tell you the truth. This time I came to see this Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, why would I be interested in visiting your Yi family? This Brother Feng's words were full of strong confidence. Not to mention the Yi family, he didn't even care about the human race. So at this time, he naturally didn't speak politely. The people behind Yi Kuang were infuriated. This was too much. To show their sincerity, the Yi clan had even opened the first secret realm to this Brother Feng. How dare he look down on the Yi clan like this? This was intolerable. The situation instantly froze. Suddenly, a figure flashed past them, and with their cultivations, they practically sensed it at the first possible moment. Chapter 1631. Everyone's divine sense immediately followed, and they instantly caught sight of this little fairy in the wind. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Kuan Peng. It's actually a Kuan Peng. Although the people present were all of the younger generation, how many of them could cultivate to this level by completely cultivating in seclusion? Every one of them was knowledgeable and had a strong memory. Even though they hadn't seen the true form of the Kuan Peng, they had all seen pictures of it. So, the impression they had of it was too deep. So, almost immediately, they came to the conclusion of this Kuan Peng. However, everyone immediately became even more puzzled. How could it be Kuan Peng? Even in ancient times, Kuan Peng was very rare. Usually, there were only one or two of them in the world. At this time, they could actually see Kuan Peng here. In particular, this was a young Kuan Peng that had not grown up at all. This made many people completely confused, especially the Yi family. They were very familiar with the human secret realm. Although there were many planets in the human secret realm, and many ancient fierce beasts existed in the space, it was impossible to have a fierce beast like Kuan Peng. This level of fierce beast could even alarm the Yi family head. If such a Kuan Peng appeared, the entire Yi family would be shaken. Many people were a little puzzled. According to the information they had read before, Kuan Peng was born with celestial realm cultivation. This young Kuan Peng was only the size of a fist, but its cultivation was only at Transcendent Realm 5th level. Admittedly, compared to ordinary creatures, having Transcendent Realm 5th level cultivation at birth was already tyrannical and heaven-defying. However, this was the Kuan Peng, a primordial fierce beast. It was naturally incomparable to ordinary fierce beasts. After the old Kuan Peng grew old and only had an egg left, he could still defeat the world's top expert like Jiao Ing Demon King. Needless to say, Kuan Peng was tyrannical. What's going on? Brother Feng looked at Yi Kuang and asked. Yi Kuang was also inexplicably shocked. He had no idea why a Kuan Peng would appear in the human character secret realm. The way Brother Feng looked at Yi Kuang did not seem to be fake. Thinking about it, if this was the Yi family's Kuan Peng, then why would he see it at this time? It must have been hidden until it was fully grown and could be a threat to the whole world. An adult Kuan Peng was an existence that exceeded Heaven Realm. Just the Kuan Peng alone exceeded everyone's imagination. I don't care what this has to do with your Yi clan. However, the Rock clan and the Yi clan are quite closely related. They both belong to the bloodline of birds. Naturally, I can't watch the descendants of the Rock clan wander outside. Brother Feng's eyes lit up as he spoke. The matter of looking for Yi Shiwen was temporarily put to the back of his mind. It was more important to capture this Kuan Peng first. Yi Kuang almost cursed. He originally wanted to capture the Kuan Peng and keep it for himself. Who knew that Brother Feng would want to take the Kuan Peng away the moment he opened his mouth? F***CK. The Kuan Peng also belongs to the bloodline of birds. The monster Kuan Peng is a fierce beast overlord in the deep sea. It only becomes a peng after transforming into a bird. Why don't you say it belongs to the bloodline of beasts in the sea? You can be shameless, but don't be so shameless. Originally, this Kuan Peng should belong to the Yi clan in the Yi clan's #1 secret realm. If at this time he said that he wanted Beishan Shui, then sorry. In the Yi clan's territory, it was not Beishan Shui's turn to speak nonsense. However, this person had to be this Brother Feng. His identity was shocking. Even Yi Kuang was very afraid of his identity. Even he did not want to offend such a person. However, the temptation of a Kuan Peng was needless to say. If he let go of a Kuan Peng, he would regret it for the rest of his life, even though he didn't know how this Kuan Peng came about. Just as he was still hesitating, Brother Feng had already made his move. He grabbed out a huge hand from the void. It was extremely fast. In the void, a series of afterimages were formed, and it directly grabbed towards the young Kuan Peng. Just as Brother Feng was about to grab the young Kuan Peng, the young Kuan Peng seemed to have realized the danger. In an instant, it increased its flying speed and escaped from Brother Feng's huge hand. The exchange of blows between the two sides was so quick that it was as fast as a hair's breadth. Everyone finally reacted and couldn't help but exclaim, "This Kuan Peng was indeed a legendary ancient ferocious creature." In the legends, the Kuan Peng could fly up 90,000 miles. Although this young Kuan Peng couldn't reach such a level, with his transcendent realm cultivation, he was able to escape the pursuit of a heaven-end realm expert. This was enough to show his terrifying talent. In terms of the grasp of the wind laws, he was much stronger than many heaven-end realm experts. They were born with the bloodline inheritance. Generations of Kuan Peng's understanding of the wind laws were passed down, allowing them to possess talents that ordinary people couldn't imagine. If this Kuan Peng was born in the heaven-end realm, even a heaven-end realm expert wouldn't be able to catch a single hair of it. This is a little interesting. Brother Feng wasn't annoyed. He only chuckled. To him, this Kuan Peng was already in his bag. There was no need to be nervous. Immediately after, he made his move again. His hand grabbed towards the Kuan Peng. This time, the Kuan Peng's movements were much faster than before. It felt a strong sense of danger. The pressure from a heaven-end realm expert made it feel like it was suffocating. If it wasn't a natural variant, a normal transcendent realm creature wouldn't even be able to raise its head in front of a heaven-end realm overlord. It could only kneel on the ground and accept its death. This was the complete suppression of a higher-level creature against a lower-level creature. Boom! Brother Feng's hand directly destroyed a secret realm, but still allowed the Kuan Peng to escape. Yi Kuang's expression instantly changed. This Brother Feng was truly unscrupulous. However, he couldn't ignore it. This was within the Yi family. Fortunately, no one was inside Liamin. If there was someone inside, wouldn't he be dead? Brother Feng, have mercy, he quickly said. Stop talking nonsense. Don't block me. Otherwise, I'll kill you as well, said Brother Feng coldly as he glanced at Yi Kuang. He didn't put Yi Kuang in his eyes at all. At this moment, there was only the young Kuan Peng in his eyes. Even with his identity, he would go crazy against the Kuan Peng. It was impossible for him to ignore the existence of the Kuan Peng. His background was indeed noble, but compared to the Kuan Peng, one of the 10 ancient ferocious beasts, he paled in comparison. Swish! His hand grabbed out again, and another secret realm was destroyed on the spot. Brother Feng, if you really want to be stubborn, then don't blame me for being impolite. Although our Yi family's people aren't as noble as you, we won't allow you to kill as you wish, said Yi Kuang coldly. That's right. Do you want to start a massacre in our Yi family? If that's the case, our Yi family doesn't welcome you. I've had enough of your kindness. Do you still think that it's the distant past? Do you still want to act like a tyrant? Following Yi Kuang's declaration, many of the young experts of the Yi clan also voiced their support for Yi Kuang. They had had enough of this Brother Feng. If it wasn't for the fact that they weren't a match for him, and if it wasn't for the fact that his status was astonishing, they wouldn't have tolerated him until now. How dare you? Does your Yi family want to rebel? Beishan Shui hurriedly shouted. I don't think your human clan has any sincerity in this matter. It's not worth our help. Beishan Shui, don't try to sow discord. If today's matter fails, don't even think about leaving our Yi family. Yi Kuang gritted his teeth and looked at Beishan Shui. His eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed to have gone mad. Beishan Shui suddenly stopped. Only then did he remember that this was the Yi family's territory. If these guys really went crazy, then no one would be able to stop them. All right, I won't attack these secret realms anymore. But don't stop me, otherwise I won't be polite. Brother Feng instantly reacted and said. He was not afraid of Yi Kuang, but he was afraid that Yi Kuang would stop him and waste time, causing him to lose this great rock. As for the Yi family daring to offend him, he could settle the score at any time in the future. The most important thing was to capture the great rock first. Before that, it was okay to compromise a little. After saying that, he had already moved. His figure directly flew out, chasing in the direction of the young great rock. For this young great rock, he was determined to get it. And when Yi Kuang saw the direction in which he and the young great rock flew, his face suddenly changed because he was too familiar with that direction. It was the direction of the human number 1 secret realm. In the past, he was also one of the masters of this secret realm. Now, that master was none other than Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen had entered the celestial realm, he still did not move out of the human number 1 secret realm. It was somewhat against the rules, but this was not a big deal because there was no clear rule that forced them to leave. Generally, they chose to leave by themselves. In addition, once Yi Shiwen returned to the human number 1 secret realm, he often cultivated in seclusion and did not care about anything else. Gradually, everyone accepted the fact that Yi Shiwen was in the human number 1 secret realm. Anyway, this was his own business. If he did not go to the heaven number 1 secret realm with better conditions, then there was nothing he could do. Originally, this brother Feng was looking for Yi Shiwen. Now, the direction in which they were chasing was the direction where Yi Shiwen was. After his face changed several times, he gritted his teeth and directly chased after them. Not only Yi Kuang, but the other masters of the Yi family also saw the direction in which they were chasing. They also reacted and chased after them. Chapter 1632. Even Beishan Shui and the experts behind him followed. They had followed Brother Feng here to begin with, so it was only natural for them to follow him at this time. Young Kuan-Peng's speed was extremely fast. His entire body seemed to have completely integrated with the wind attribute laws, turning into the wind attribute laws. Even so, he still couldn't catch up with Brother Feng's speed. He was still getting closer and closer. After all, his cultivation was still too low. If he had celestial realm cultivation, even Brother Feng wouldn't be able to catch up with him. Young Kuan-Peng kept howling, as if he was saying that Brother Feng was shameless and that he was bullying the young. But at this time, Brother Feng couldn't care less about what young Kuan-Peng was thinking. He kept reaching out with his hands, trying to catch young Kuan-Peng. However, he couldn't bear to kill the young Kuan-Peng, which was why the young Kuan-Peng kept escaping. However, he wasn't in a hurry. As long as the young Kuan-Peng was still in Mystery Realm number 1, the young Kuan-Peng wouldn't be able to escape his pursuit. Both sides were in the void, one chasing and the other escaping. In a flash, they had reached the outside of Mystery Realm number 1. Young Kuan-Peng rushed in directly. Let's see where you can run to. Brother Feng sneered. If young Kuan-Peng kept escaping, he might not be able to do anything to young Kuan-Peng in a short time. But young Kuan-Peng had escaped into the Mystery Realm. It was as if he was trapped in a corner. It wasn't that easy to escape. He was about to make a move, but Yi Kuang had already caught up and shouted, Brother Feng, please show mercy. You can't touch this Mystery Realm. Why? Brother Feng squinted and said, because young Kuan-Peng had escaped into the Mystery Realm, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Because this Mystery Realm is special. I hope Brother Feng will show mercy. Yi Kuang stammered for a long time. He couldn't say that the Yi Shiwen you were looking for was inside. Everyone had forgotten about Yi Shiwen's glory during this period of time, but he still remembered it. He had also been paying attention to the news of Yi Shiwen. Although there had been no news of Yi Shiwen for 10 years, he knew that Yi Shiwen should still be inside. If Brother Feng took action, he was afraid that it would also affect Yi Shiwen inside. He naturally didn't have a good impression of Yi Shiwen. In fact, he hated him to the bone. He wouldn't hesitate to kill him if he had the opportunity. However, the one who wanted to kill him was Brother Feng. How could he watch Brother Feng kill him and not do anything? Otherwise, he wouldn't be Yi Kuang. I thought it was something big. It's just a secret realm. When I catch the young Kuan Peng, I'll compensate you with 10. What's wrong with that? Brother Feng didn't care at all. It was just a mystic realm of this level. Even 100 or 1,000 of them couldn't be compared to the Kuan Peng. As long as he could catch the young Kuan Peng, what was a mere mystic realm worth mentioning? No, Brother Feng, listen to me. This secret realm is not ordinary. I hope you can show mercy, Yi Kuang said. Yi Kuang, you have blocked Brother Feng's actions time and time again. Are you trying to go against Brother Feng? At this time, Beishan Shui had also arrived and tried to sow discord. Beishan Shui, don't try to sow discord. If it was any other mystic realm, I'm afraid I can't touch this mystic realm. Yi Kuang gritted his teeth and said. The most important thing was that he knew that Yi Shiwen had a celestial realm expert by his side. If he wanted to touch Yi Shiwen, it was impossible. Good. I didn't care at first, but now I want to see what's inside. There's actually something I can't touch. Brother Feng said with an ugly expression. Obviously, he was angered by Yi Kuang's words and said it as if he was angry. As he said that, his big hand directly grabbed towards the mystic realm. If that happened, the young Kuan Peng would have no way to escape and would eventually fall into his hands. At this time, Yi Kuang heaved a sigh of relief and sneered at Brother Feng. This person had humiliated him time and time again. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. Naturally, he knew Yi Shiwen's background. Even his master didn't dare to easily find trouble with him, let alone this Brother Feng. When the time comes, don't call me Brother Feng. Brother Feng was very satisfied at this time and didn't notice Yi Kuang's expression at this time. However, even if he noticed it, he wouldn't think too much about it. In other words, he didn't think that in the Yi family, especially in this kind of mystic realm for newcomers, he would meet any opponents. In the current Yi family, there was almost no one who was qualified to make him look at them differently. Yi Kuang was only slightly in his eyes. However, suddenly, in the void, a big dragon suddenly appeared when his big hand was about to grab the number 1 mystic realm. It roared towards the sky and opened its bloody mouth, directly biting his big hand into pieces on the spot. If he hadn't quickly retracted his hand, even his hand would have been bitten. How is this possible? Suddenly, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. One must know that with his cultivation, what kind of formation could stop him? Along the way, he saw all the mystic realms with his own eyes. Ordinary mystic realms could be crushed by him with one hand. Why is this mystic realm so unusual? At this time, he seemed to understand a little why Yi Kuang didn't let him touch this mystic realm. However, he didn't take it to heart and attacked again. Let's see what's so strange about this mystic realm. One of his big hands directly turned into a big hand of burning flames, with an unparalleled momentum, directly smashing down from the sky. The terrible flame, like the real fire of the sun, directly burned through the void. Even though the people were far away, they could feel the amazing temperature. This series of changes also caused many experts of the Yi family who were in closed-door training in the human secret realm to come out one after another. What on earth was that terrible pressure that seemed to make people despair? Could it be that there was an invasion? They leaped out one after another. When they came out, they saw such a shocking scene. A huge hand that looked like it could destroy the world condensed in the void. Then it burned fiercely and slammed down. Even the sky was shaking slightly. Even though they were far away, they could feel the fatal heat and the terrifying power. It shook the entire human secret realm. Almost instantly, their faces turned pale. This kind of terrible power, in their eyes, was no different from the wrath of the gods. In the Yi family, those who had this kind of cultivation were undoubtedly the leaders of the major forces, but the leaders of the Yi family would absolutely not fight like this in the Yi family. It was not that they had never seen Celestial Realm experts, but compared to Celestial Realm experts were also inferior. The two sides seemed to be at a completely different level of power. That direction is the human number 1 secret realm. Someone suddenly reacted, looking at the big fire hand in the sky, fiercely smashing down. Human number 1 secret realm. Isn't Yi Shiwen in closed-door training? Why is the battle happening over there? It's over. This human character number 1 mystery realm won't be able to hold on much longer. The person who made this move has probably already stepped into the Celestial Realm. The Celestial Realm experts I've seen in the past are nothing compared to this terrifying power. Many people were suddenly stunned, horrified, and could only watch the big fire hand directly smashing down. Roar! There was another deafening roar as a huge dragon materialized in the void. Immediately after, a dragon claw clawed at the huge flaming hand in the void. It was the authentic dragon claw hand. You're courting death. Brother Feng sneered, and the big fire hand directly smashed down, collapsing the space, directly landing on the huge dragon's body. Roar! The huge dragon continued to roar, and its body was directly penetrated, but it turned back and bit the big fire hand. It itself was formed by the condensation of spiritual energy. For ordinary creatures, this kind of injury was enough to completely annihilate them. But for this huge dragon, it was nothing at all. Its body that was penetrated was constantly being replenished by the spiritual energy. Let's see how long you can last, Brother Feng said, and he increased the strength, firmly believing that it was enough to destroy the entire formation. Although this formation was powerful, no matter how powerful it was, there was a limit, and it could not be endured without limit, especially this kind of formation, which was especially dependent on spiritual energy. Without enough spiritual energy, it could not continue to be supported at all. Boom! 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 However, no matter how much strength he exerted, this huge dragon could only bite down on the flaming hand. No matter how much it burned its body, it didn't budge at all. It was as if it had been imprisoned by the nomological power of a powerful array formation. It couldn't move forward at all. At this time, in the formation, for similar huge dragons directly rushed out, roaring, and directly rushed towards Brother Feng in the void. The other 4 dragons weren't inferior to the previous one at all. Every single one of them was terrifyingly powerful, and the most terrifying thing was that they weren't afraid of death at all, nor did they have the concept of death at all. These huge dragons were extremely powerful, and in an instant, they rushed to Brother Feng's side. One of them was the fastest, and it opened its bloody mouth, biting towards Brother Feng. Damn it! Brother Feng suddenly became a little angry, and directly smashed his palm, the burning palm technique, directly blowing up the huge dragon's head in the air. However, the situation did not improve at all, and the other 3 huge dragons took this opportunity to attack. At this moment, when everyone caught sight of this scene, they understood that this man number 1 secret ground was most likely not as simple as it seemed. Chapter 1633. Especially Beishan Shui and the experts who came with Beishan Shui. They looked at the members of the Yi clan and saw that they all had a look of understanding on their faces. At this moment, they finally understood why Yi Kuang didn't want Brother Feng to make a move. Even though this human character number 1 secret realm was within the human character secret realm, it was still incredible. How strong and terrifying was a celestial being realm expert, especially this Brother Feng, whose strength was even more tyrannical. But to think that he would be trapped by a formation. What kind of formation could actually trap a celestial being realm expert like him? They couldn't imagine what the situation would be like if they were in Yi Kuang's shoes. What they didn't know was that everyone in the Yi clan was also shocked at this time. On the contrary, they were scared to death, especially those who thought that Yi Shiwen had declined. At this time, they were even more shocked. They didn't know whether Yi Shiwen had declined or not, but they could see that Yi Shiwen was still the same as before, and couldn't be easily humiliated just by looking at this formation. Especially Yi Kuang. He knew that Yi Shiwen had a celestial realm expert beside him, but that celestial realm expert hadn't even attacked yet. Just with Yi Shiwen's formation, he could actually block Brother Feng. Needless to say, he was shocked. They didn't know that Yi Shiwen was currently using the Zhun method to protect himself. It was the 5-Qi Imperial formation that he had learned from 5 Elements Supreme's personal letter. Normally, Yi Shiwen would practice using the 5-Qi Imperial formation, but at the critical moment, this 5-Qi Imperial formation could also display unparalleled power and block the enemy. The most important thing was that behind these 5 big dragons were the 5 fundamental dragon veins that Yi Shiwen had left behind to form the 5-Qi Imperial formation. The power of dragon veins was so great that even a celestial realm expert wouldn't find it easy to subdue a fully grown dragon vein. Moreover, it was 5 dragon veins formed by the power of the formation, so its power was quite impressive. It didn't take long for Brother Feng to realize how extraordinary the 5-Qi's Imperial formation was. Every time he blasted a dragon's head apart, it would quickly be entangled by the other dragons. The dragon that was blasted apart would quickly reform itself. He was also astonished. To construct such a large formation, there was naturally no need to mention the consumption. Every time the dragon head was condensed, it would consume a large amount of spirit qi. It was still easy to judge that it was painful. He had originally thought that the other party would not be able to hold on for long, and that the entire formation would be completely broken because there was no energy to support it. Who knew that he had already destroyed the dragon heads more than 10 times, but he still could not break free from these damned dragons. However, the dragons did not show any signs of collapsing as they continued to pester him. If he knew that behind these big dragons were the incarnations of the dragon veins, he wouldn't have done such a futile thing. If he wanted to exhaust the dragon veins, it would be impossible even if he exhausted himself to death. Although his cultivation was extremely strong and he had a mystical flame in his body to protect himself, he had no way to break free from the entanglement of these big dragons. The situation immediately fell into a state of entanglement and stalemate. At this moment, the little Kuan Peng popped its head out of the formation. Looking at Brother Feng, who was surrounded by the big dragons, it couldn't help but make a face and shake its butt. It laughed at Brother Feng like a mischievous child and revealed a happy smile. Although it wasn't in human form, everyone could clearly feel the joy of this little Kuan Peng. They couldn't help but frown. Yi Kuang, is this Kuan Peng related to your Yi family? Beishan Shui asked. If he didn't believe it at the beginning, he could only speculate after seeing the little Kuan Peng enter and exit the human number 1 secret realm unscathed. However, Brother Feng was attacked. Yi Kuang rolled his eyes at him and didn't intend to answer him at all. However, he was also very puzzled. He didn't know if it was related to the Yi family, but it was most likely related to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had always been a mysterious person. No one knew what he had done in the past 10 years. In fact, in the past 10 years, except for Yi Qianqian, who entered the human number 1 secret realm, no one else had entered the human number 1 secret realm. No one knew how his realm was and how much progress he had made. At this time, even if a little Kuan Peng suddenly appeared, he wouldn't be surprised. This little Kuan Peng didn't run anywhere else but to the human number 1 secret realm. Moreover, the terrifying formation of the human number 1 secret realm didn't attack it. It could be seen that it had something to do with Yi Shiwen. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a little bitter. Why did Yi Shiwen get all the good stuff? This was not an ordinary spiritual pet. This was a Kuan Peng, one of the 10 ancient fierce beasts. Although he didn't know that the entire demon territory had been turned upside down because of the theft of the Kuan Peng egg, and that several celestial being realm demons had fought with the Beast King in the demon territory, he could imagine how difficult it must have been. Damn it! Destroy them all! At this time, endless flames instantly emerged from Brother Feng's body. It directly expanded on the spot, turning the area within a radius of hundreds of miles into a sea of fire. In this sea of fire, the several giant dragons were also burned into ashes amidst continuous roars. This is Naming mythical fire. It's so powerful. It is said that Nanming mythical fire is one of the most powerful flames in the world. Only the legendary True Sun fire and a few other mystical fires can be compared to it. Beishan Shui couldn't help but say in shock. Everyone retreated one after another in order to avoid being touched by this kind of deviant flame. That would be the end. Even such a powerful dragon was actually completely burned to ashes. At this time, Brother Feng, who was in the void, had endless flames attached to the surface of his body. He was like a flame creature, and the area within a radius of hundreds of miles was filled with flames. This was his domain space. These giant dragons had really angered him, so he directly released his flame domain, which was a powerful and indestructible flame. The giant dragons were instantly burned into ashes. His terrible momentum directly suppressed the entire human secret realm. Even many experts of the celestial being realm in the Earth's secret realm were alarmed. The pressure was still spreading out to the void. Even in the Heaven Talent #1 secret realm, some old antiques who had been in closed-door training all year round were awakened by this terrible momentum. There were even experts of the celestial being realm among them. At this time, everyone was alarmed. They all released their primordial spirits to see what was going on. Many people were even ready to fight. The power of such a powerful expert didn't belong to any expert of the Yi family that they were familiar with. Could it be that there was an invasion? Many people were shocked, especially when they saw Brother Feng, who was like a flame creature in the void. The terrifying aura that belonged to the celestial being realm covered everything. Even the old antiques of the celestial being realm noticed it. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Kuang was right next to him and didn't make a move, they would have personally taken action to drive away the enemy. Normally, if an enemy could invade this place, it meant that the Yi family had been completely destroyed. The situation was extremely tense. Brother Feng couldn't help but sneer. "You have completely angered me. Completely angered me." He couldn't help but roar in a low voice like a wild beast. "I want to see what kind of thing you are. How dare you stop me from advancing?" He sneered and took a step forward. In an instant, he was already outside the human secret realm #1. His flame domain instantly crashed into the 5 Chi's Imperial Formation. Boom! An earth-shattering collision was heard. Boundless spiritual chi and flames collided violently. It was extremely shocking. His flame domain was like a sharp sword, piercing into the 5 Chi's Imperial Formation and almost piercing through it. Little Kuan Peng, who had been making faces and laughing at Brother Feng, was instantly shocked. The terrifying flames hadn't even gotten close, but just the high temperature alone was enough to set his entire body on fire. He immediately screamed and rolled around in the sky. Although no one understood bird language, they could understand what he meant through his mental fluctuations. He was scolding Brother Feng for being shameless and shameless. Everyone could only frown as they watched this funny little Kuan Peng flapping his wings and condensing the laws of water in the sky. He summoned water dragons to land on his body to extinguish the flames. It took a lot of effort to extinguish the flames. His entire body was extremely black like an African chicken. He pointed at Brother Feng with one of his wings and scolded him. His appearance was as comical as one could imagine. At this time, Brother Feng had no time to care about this Kuan Peng. He only wanted to break through the formation, grab the person inside, and then strangle him to death. Only then could he vent his hatred. No one had ever dared to make him suffer like this. Brother Feng sneered and said, "What the hell are you? Why are you hiding inside? Come out if you have the ability." "That's right. You should also be a member of the Yi family. Is there anyone in the Yi family who doesn't dare to show their face?" Beishan Shui also chimed in. "It's a pleasure to have a friend come from afar. Although it's an unwelcome guest, I can't ignore it." At this time, a leisurely voice came from the formation. It sounded like a sigh, but it also seemed like it was suppressing its anger. Just as this voice finished speaking, a huge hand instantly condensed in the void, flashing with golden light. In an instant, it grabbed towards Brother Feng, who was in the flame domain at lightning speed. Chapter 1634. A big hand reached out and tore through the sky. It was shining with a golden light as it directly grabbed Brother Feng. Brother Feng had a disdainful smile on his face. It was impossible for such a big hand to penetrate his flame domain. Sure enough, when the big hand approached his flame domain, it was instantly burned by the Nanmingli fire in his flame domain. The terrifying flames burned on the big hand. Neymar had thought that it would be burned to ashes in an instant. Who knew that the golden divinity on the big hand would resist the Nanmingli fire? Although it was still burning, it would not be burned to ashes in an instant. This unforeseen event was completely beyond Brother Feng's expectations. He was not prepared at all. At this time, he was almost caught by the big hand without any defense. How is this possible? His eyes were full of disbelief. However, there was no time for him to think. He suddenly stomped his feet, and his body instantly flew out like a cannonball. However, he did not move forward but backward. He wanted to avoid the big hand's attack. However, the big hand was like a dog's skin plaster. It directly stuck to him and grabbed him again. It was as fast as lightning. If Brother Feng's speed was already very fast, Neymar's big golden hand was actually much faster than him. Seeing that it was about to catch Brother Feng, the big golden hand was finally burned to ashes by his flame domain. At this time, he reluctantly heaved a sigh of relief. It was too thrilling just now. If he had been caught by the big golden hand, it was inevitable that he would have paid a price to escape. Then, his face became even uglier. He felt that his face had been put on the ground and ruthlessly trampled. Originally, he did not care about the so-called master of the secret realm at all. In the end, he was put in a bad position and was almost caught by the big hand. At this time, he began to be a little curious. Who was the master of this secret realm? According to the saying, the human secret realm should only be a place where the younger generation of the Yi family gathered. Among the younger generation of the Yi family, there was actually someone who could threaten him? This was simply impossible. He looked coldly at the human secret realm number 1 and said faintly, "Who is it? Do you dare to show yourself?" At this time, not only was Brother Feng curious, but Beishan Shui and the others were also curious. Who was this person to be able to threaten Brother Feng? In the younger generation of the Yi family, there were only a few people who had stepped into the celestial realm, and they were Yi Shukong, Yi Qiong, and Yi Kuang. Yi Shukong was exploring in a distant space, and Yi Qiong had followed the family head to the royal court. Now, in the younger generation of the Yi family, there was only Yi Kuang. This was also the reason why Yi Kuang was the one who came out to entertain them. Apart from Yi Kuang, there was no one else in the Yi clan who could hold the fort. Beishan Shui knew this very well, which was why he chose to come at this time. Who was the person inside? The Yi clan's secret realm number 1 had never been open to the public, so even if he wanted to know, it was impossible for him to know what was going on inside. At most, he could only rely on some information from some hidden spies, but it was not enough to determine who was inside. As for those people from the Yi family, they naturally knew who was in the human character number 1 secret realm. It was Yi Shiwen, but they absolutely did not expect that Yi Shiwen, who had not made any moves for 10 years, would actually make such a sharp move. They had also heard the voice from before, and it was indeed Yi Shiwen. Especially Yi Shui. Her relationship with Yi Shiwen had always been very good, and it was even Yi Shiwen who first introduced Yi Shiwen to the law enforcement hall. Naturally, the relationship between the two was very good, but in the past 10 years, Yi Shiwen had been in a state of closed-door training, and only Yi Qianqian had the opportunity to enter for training for a period of time. The other simply did not know what kind of situation he was in. At this time, seeing that Yi Shiwen was not only fine, but on the contrary, looking at the state of his attack, it was unknown how many times stronger than 10 years ago. She was extremely gratified. But at this time, Yi Kuang's mood was very complicated. At this time, he did not know whether to feel lucky or depressed. Yi Shiwen's strength really did not stop. Show up? I don't think it's necessary. If you want to see me, you have to break my big formation first. Yi Shiwen's faint voice came from inside, and it seemed that he was very confident in his big formation. Let's see how long you can last. This big formation of yours is not very profound. See how I break it? Brother Feng suddenly sneered and directly descended. His flame domain was completely unfolded. Unlike ordinary flame domains, This flame domain itself was condensed by Nanmingli fire, one of the most overbearing flames in the world, and it was many times more tyrannical than ordinary domains. Boom! The entire flame domain directly deformed under the control of Brother Feng, turning into a huge flame-long sword, and with an amazing momentum, it fiercely slammed into the formation. Rumble! The entire flame-long sword and the five Chi's imperial formation fiercely collided, and the whole formation began to rumble and shake, as if it would collapse at any time. And at this time, 5 long dragons appeared again, and completely condensed again, as if the ones that were completely annihilated just now were not these big dragons. Whoosh! 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 These big dragons were extremely fast, and in an instant, they directly pounced in front of Brother Feng. Their bodies were hundreds of feet long, and they directly stretched out from the depths of the formation. They opened their bloody mouths and bit towards Brother Feng. Boom! 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 Brother Feng held the flame-long sword in his hand, and he was like a noble flame god, wielding it freely. His sword technique was extremely mysterious. Although he was not a sword cultivator, his cultivation was extremely strong, and in addition, his sword technique was very exquisite. It could be said to be a top-notch sword technique, and the power displayed was naturally extremely strong. He threw out a sky full of sword light, piercing through the sky and shattering the void. Those big dragons were all killed by him in the void, and their entire heads were chopped off. But it was useless. These big dragons seemed to be endless, and when one was killed, another would automatically revive. Originally, Brother Feng thought that as long as he continued to kill like this, he did not believe that this formation could be maintained. After all, the power of this formation was extraordinary, and even a Heaven Realm expert could be trapped, so the price was naturally very high. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult to maintain for a long time. To be able to maintain it for a long time, it was all for sex and other large forces. For a private person to be able to use such a formation, he was already a very wealthy person. But who knew that he still underestimated this formation, or rather, underestimated the extent of Yi Shiwen's wealth. Although young Kuan Peng had absorbed 9 spiritual veins, he himself still had 5 dragon veins, which was enough to form the 5 Chi's imperial formation. Competing with the dragon veins, which could support the development of an entire sect in terms of consumption, was undoubtedly suicidal. And at this time, although Brother Feng did not know that Yi Shiwen had the support of the dragon veins and that it was very difficult to break through, he still more or less guessed that Yi Shiwen probably did not lack spirit crystals. If they wanted to compete with each other, he probably would not be able to outlast Yi Shiwen. When he thought of this, he was depressed. Why did he encounter such a difficult opponent? Even if it was a normal formation, he was not afraid at all. As long as it was a formation, there was a way to break it. The more complicated the formation, the easier it was to break it. As long as the core of the formation was found, he could destroy it. Not to mention a formation like the 5 Chi's imperial formation that did not look complicated, but he had no way to break it because Yi Shiwen did not use any techniques at all. He purely used the endless big dragons to drown him. This was also thanks to his cultivation. If it was an ordinary person, or even Beishan Shui, they would probably be in a difficult situation at this time. At this time, Beishan Shui looked at the human number 1 secret realm with a serious expression. She originally thought that the Yi family was only SOSO, with only those 3 people who were presentable. Who knew that there was such a person hidden and had not been discovered? The Yi family was really worthy of being a marquee family in the human clan. This foundation could not be underestimated. At this time, Beishan Shui directly shouted, "Brother Feng, let me help you." As he said this, he directly leaped out and flew directly towards the human number 1 secret realm. A big hand condensed in the air and then slapped down fiercely. The 5 Chi's imperial formation's attention was focused on Brother Feng. It did not expect that there would be a celestial realm expert who would be so shameless to interfere. Pung! With a deafening roar, the entire tactical matrix shook violently and a crack appeared. Brother Feng was not a pretentious person. He didn't say nonsense like this was his battle. and he didn't need others to intervene. Instead, he directly condensed a long sword in the void. It was a burning long sword. The long sword condensed by Nanming Ignis was comparable to ordinary magic weapons and celestial devices. Whoosh! The long sword formed from the entire Nanming leaf fire directly broke through the crack and directly slashed down. Boom! After the formation was broken, without any protection, the continent of the human number 1 secret realm shattered into two in the air. The fragments fell directly onto the planet below, forming a huge meteor shower. 2 evil guests really came. But since you are here, then don't leave. Don't think that the Yi family is a place where you can come and go as you please. A cold voice came out, and then a terrifying aura rose from inside. Chapter 1635. This frightening aura was like a cyclone that continued to rise. As this aura continued to rise, waves of powerful pressure swept out in all directions. It was as if a huge tornado had been formed, a tornado that was completely condensed from spiritual energy. And this tornado that was condensed from spiritual energy was also slowly absorbed by the figure in the middle. Like a giant whale sucking in water, it absorbed the entire spiritual energy tornado cleanly in just a few breaths. And at this time, everyone finally saw clearly who this person was. This was a young man in a green shirt. His face was delicate, but he wasn't too outstanding. However, he had a temperament that absolutely couldn't be ignored. Yi Shiwen, it really is him. Yi Kuang's heart trembled crazily. Although he had already guessed that Yi Shiwen should be cultivating inside, and the one who attacked just now should be Yi Shiwen, but when he really saw Yi Shiwen appear, his heart couldn't help but be incomparably shocked. He also didn't dare to believe it. 10 years ago, he was just at the 6th sky of Celestial Realm. How could he really fight against a Celestial Realm expert? This was abnormally unbelievable no matter how he looked at it. And behind him, the people of the Yi family all revealed looks of disbelief. Although they had already guessed it, they still couldn't accept it when they saw it for themselves. Yi Shiwen didn't have the overlord aura of someone who had stepped into the Celestial Realm, but he had a feeling that he definitely wouldn't lose to an overlord. After Yi Shiwen absorbed the spiritual energy, the aura on his body suddenly exploded. It swept out in circles like a raging wave that was released into the distance. 7th sky of Celestial Realm. He had finally stepped into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. In such a short period of time, not even a day, he had stepped into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. If it was someone else, it would be something unimaginable, but it wasn't the case for him. To him, he didn't use a day to step from the 6th sky of Celestial Realm to the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. Instead, he had to take the previous 10 years into account, and he only stepped from the 6th sky of Celestial Realm to the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. He had sacrificed temporary development in exchange for an incomparably deep foundation. Finally, at this moment, he had a rich harvest. It was a pity that he had just stepped into the 7th heaven of the heaven tier, and there was already an unwelcome guest who didn't give him the time to consolidate. Otherwise, he would be even more powerful. Beside him, young Kuan Peng was also constantly narrating something. He kept pointing at Beishan Shui and Brother Feng, as if he was complaining to Yi Shiwen about something. After all these years, Yi Shiwen and young Kuan Peng could already be said to be telepathic. Although he couldn't understand what young Kuan Peng was saying in bird language, he could understand what it meant. He gave a rough account of how he had been targeted by these two people. Then, he complained to Yi Shiwen about their atrocities. He felt wronged, and hoped that Yi Shiwen would avenge him. This was the true power of the great beast-taming art that Yi Mo had taught him. It could allow spiritual pets to recognize their masters, but it wouldn't cause them to lose their independent thoughts. It could even be said that apart from recognizing their masters, there was no difference between the spiritual pets and spiritual pets. This young Kuan Peng had just been born not long ago. It was like a child. At this time, it was clearly a child who had lost a fight and was looking for an adult to get back at them. Yi Shiwen smiled and didn't say much because he was very clear about the value of young Kuan Peng. Before it hatched, he didn't even dare to tell the higher-ups of the Yi family, for fear that he would be forced to hand it over. Although the possibility of this was not very high, he couldn't rule out the possibility that some higher-ups might not be able to figure out the situation and want Yi Shiwen to hand it over. Now that it had hatched, it was nothing. Young Kuan Peng had already recognized its master, and there was no way to change it. However, he was also very clear about how attractive young Kuan Peng was to others. Once discovered, there was almost no way to avoid being targeted by others. However, he didn't expect that in just one day of closed-door training, he actually made such a big mess and caused so much trouble. However, he was already prepared. Since he had decided to hatch the Kuan Peng, there was almost no way to avoid the trouble that would arise. He looked at the two people and smiled coldly. Since these troubles were destined to happen, then he would start with these two people. I think you two don't want to live anymore. You destroyed my secret territory, Yi Shiwen said with a cold expression. He didn't expect the number one secret territory to be destroyed in his hands. Although it was not destroyed by his hands, there was naturally no need to mention the relationship between them. I think you're the one who doesn't understand the situation. Do you know who the two of us are? Beishan Shui took a step forward and said rudely. His eyes were still very fearful at first. That powerful force had completely shocked him, but very soon, he discovered that this person was actually only in the 7th level of the Heaven Realm. This made him completely relieved. A mere 7th level of the Heaven Realm had just broken through and had not stabilized his realm. He was no match for him at all. I don't care who you are. Since you're an unwelcome guest, then don't even think about leaving. Yi Shiwen sneered and said. Beishan Shui suddenly felt like he was about to go crazy. This Yi Shiwen repeatedly did not play by the rules, leaving him with no place to vent his anger. The Beishan clan was also very famous in the ancient Barons continent. In the 100 Clan Alliance, they were even more powerful. No one had ever dared to speak to him so rudely. Beishan Shui was completely enraged. He directly attacked. A big hand slapped out and fell down. It instantly turned into a big hand and grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. This big hand condensed countless laws of the Great Path, entwining and dancing. You're from the Beishan clan? Yi Shiwen quickly discovered that this method of attack was too familiar. It was not the first time he had fought with the experts of the Beishan clan. In particular, the cultivation techniques practiced by the experts of the Beishan clan were very similar. Hence, they all had a similar aura. Yi Shiwen believed that he would not be wrong. However, he was also very puzzled. It was needless to say how important the number one secret realm was to the Yi clan. He had never heard of it being open to outsiders. How did Beishan Shui enter? Could it be that the 100 Clan Alliance had completely broken through the human territory? After thinking about it, he felt that it was impossible. After all, although a large part of the human strength was held back by the Demon Clan, if they underestimated the human race, they would really be dead. The reason why the human race could stand on the ancient Barons continent and occupy the most fertile land despite being surrounded by enemies was not just because they had more people. However, this was not the time for him to think too much. He pointed his finger out on the spot, using the sky shaking style. The entire void was shaking crazily, vibrating according to a certain frequency. The powerful shock wave caused by the vibration instantly swept out and fiercely collided with the big hand. Boom! The shock wave swept over like waves, directly shattering Beishan Shui's big hand on the spot. Inch by inch it shattered. Beishan Shui was still in disbelief. He did not expect that the full-powered attack of a Heaven Realm expert like him would be broken by a kid at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm in front of him. It was simply a great humiliation. In the eyes of ordinary people, an expert at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm was undoubtedly a high and mighty figure in the ancient Barons continent. However, in the eyes of an overlord like him, he was nothing at all. He was not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as them. Hence, he did not care about Yi Shiwen's cultivation at all. However, he did not expect Yi Shiwen to give him such a show of strength right from the start. And Yi Shiwen's finger, after breaking his big hand, went straight to his head at lightning speed, without any reduction in its momentum. It seemed as if it was going to smash his entire head. You're courting death. Don't be so arrogant. Today, I'll let you see the true secret art of our Beishan clan." Beishan Shui sneered, and all the qi on his body began to spread, vibrating in the void. The true essence turned into a sky full of sword light in the void, and the sword light condensed into a huge river of sword wei in the void. The laws wrapped around each of the sword light, making it look even more terrifying. Each of the sword light could easily kill a celestial realm expert, not to mention that there were so many of them condensing at the same time. "I'll let you see the power of our Beishan clan's sword principle secret art, Tianyuan sword technique," he shouted, and the river of the way of the sword whistled over with unparalleled power, shattering the void. The power of the space seemed so fragile before the power of the river of the way of the sword. It completely collapsed, and it did not even manage to hold on for a little longer. Yi Shiwen looked at the Tianyuan sword technique whistling over, and he kept retreating. Anyway, the number one secret territory had been completely destroyed, and he no longer cared what would become of this place. Those few dragon veins had already been stored in the Tianyuan mirror. He stepped on an escape light, and his figure quickly swept back, but this sword light followed him like a shadow, with an irresistible momentum. It would not stop until it killed Yi Shiwen. "It's useless. No matter where you run, you won't be able to escape from my sword. Even a Heaven's End realm expert would be heavily injured by my sword, let alone a mere 7th layer of the Heaven's End realm like you." "What a joke!" Beishan Shui shouted. "Do you really think that I can't do anything to your sword technique?" Yi Shiwen's cold voice came. "The truly ridiculous person is you." Chapter 1636. "You're the laughable one." Yi Shiwen's voice was so cold that it seemed as if he had crawled out of hell. At this moment, Beishan Ju instinctively realized that something was wrong. "Beishan Shui, be careful. He's stalling for time and trying to stabilize his realm." At this moment, Brother Feng, who was beside him, had a higher cultivation. He actually saw through Yi Shiwen's intentions and realized that Yi Shiwen was stalling for time to stabilize his realm. Under such circumstances, stabilizing his realm and not stabilizing his realm were two completely different matters. Stabilizing his realm? He actually has the time to care about this when he's fighting me. I think he's tired of living, Beishan Shui said proudly. As the top genius of the Beishan clan, he was in the Heaven Paragon realm. He was an overlord even in the ancient Barons continent. Among the younger generation, his status was unimaginable. This was also why he had such an arrogant personality. It was already good enough that he didn't get distracted. At this moment, Yi Shiwen actually dared to care about stabilizing his realm while fighting him. He directed the long river of sword light to chase after Yi Shiwen, trying to kill him. How could an ordinary person compete with the speed of a sword light? However, Yi Shiwen was not an ordinary person. He had devil wings. Even if he didn't spread his devil wings, the speed of his agility technique was still amazing. At this time, he finally attacked. A big hand stretched out and turned into a dragon claw. Great dragon capture technique. With a loud bellow, he grabbed at the long river of swordsmanship with his huge hand. Boom! A huge explosion sounded. Amidst the huge hand and the sword light river collided violently. The heavenly origin sword art of the Beishan clan was indeed extremely powerful. It was so terrifying that it could destroy the world. However, his opponent was Yi Shiwen. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to use their hands to grab the sword light, but Yi Shiwen did. Accompanied by a huge explosion, the entire sword light river began to shatter like glass. It shattered bit by bit. Then, like dominoes, everything collapsed in an instant. Beishan Shui was taken aback, and his body retreated again and again. Countless sword lights collapsed in front of him, and he could only look on helplessly, but he couldn't do anything about it. Countless sword lights collapsed in front of him, and he couldn't do anything about it. How is this possible? My Tianyuan sword technique has long been cultivated to the point of perfection. Even a celestial realm expert would be heavily injured if they were hit by it. They might even die. How could it be broken by a brat like this? He still couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that he had been defeated by Yi Shiwen in just one move. But at this time, it was no longer a good time to be surprised. At this time, Yi Shiwen directly rushed up. Die! Yi Shiwen let out a loud roar. His whole body was like a golden lightning, and he directly rushed in front of Beishan Shui. He pointed out with his finger, and instantly, the entire sky was filled with finger shadows. Beishan Ju clearly knew that only one of these finger shadows was real, but it just so happened that this real finger shadow had a heaven-shaking aura that completely enveloped him, causing him to be unable to move at all. A terrifying wolf firmly locked onto him. Endless qi appeared behind Yi Shiwen, and the sky was filled with it. It interweaved into endless laws. Once he attacked, it was a big, killing move, and he wanted to completely eliminate Beishan Shui. You're already very good to be able to force me to use this move. Beishan Shui sneered and suddenly calmed down. He opened his eyes, and his aura suddenly rose. His whole body was covered with a kind of colorful light, and it transformed into a king's robe. His whole person seemed to have become a god, and his body doubled in size. His whole person became abnormally cold and emotionless. Boom! Yi Shiwen's finger pointed down, and it was actually destroyed by the colorful light on Beishan Shui's body. In just an instant, it disappeared without a trace, and he couldn't resist at all. This is... Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with a bit of surprise. He had fought with the masters of the Beishan clan more than once or twice, but he had never seen this move. You're already very good to be able to force me to use the colorful sky armor, but in front of my colorful sky armor, no one can escape by chance. Beishan Shui said as he looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. His whole body was completely buried in the colorful light, and he looked clearly like a demon. Colorful sky armor. He actually mastered the colorful sky armor. Yi Kuang's eyes were full of surprise and doubt. Senior brother Yi Kuang, what is the colorful sky armor? Why have we never heard of the Beishan clan having this kind of martial arts? Someone asked. The colorful sky armor is one of the unique martial arts of the Beishan clan, but very few people can practice it. This is a kind of special physique that incorporates their clan's most precious treasure, the colorful divine robe, into the body. It is connected with the bloodline and condensed into a special physique. It is comparable to those innate physiques that are extremely tyrannical. Yi Kuang said, in this generation, I have not heard of anyone who has really mastered it. I didn't expect Beishan Shui to actually master it. The truth is hidden deep enough. This kind of colorful sky armor is a kind of magical power, and the strength will be greatly improved. And the most terrifying thing is that this power will be provided by the colorful divine robe. As long as there are enough spirit crystals, you can be invincible. It can be said to be a very terrifying method of physique tempering. Yi Kuang said, in this case, Yi Shiwen is in danger. At this time, Yi Shui finally couldn't help but say. He was still worried about the safety of his friend. I'm afraid that Yi Shiwen will encounter trouble this time, but it doesn't matter. If there is any danger, I will also take action. Although I will deal with Yi Shiwen, I can't just watch Beishan Shui act presumptuously in our Yi clan. Yi Kuang said. When everyone heard this, they immediately felt relieved. If Yi Kuang said so, then there was naturally no problem. Moreover, it was useless for them to be worried. This level of battle was not something they could participate in. Yi Shiwen, a mere seventh sky of Celestial Realm, was actually able to contend against the Celestial Realm Master. He was simply an unprecedented monster. They had never thought that such a monster would actually appear in the Yi family. And most importantly, after all, this was the Yi clan's territory. How could those old monsters watch Beishan Shui and the others act presumptuously? At the same time, in the depths of the Heaven's secret realm, several old monsters were also in discussion. Seven-color heavenly armor. He even mastered this magical power. This guy named Beishan Shui. I'm afraid his position in the Beishan clan is not low. In the future, he also has hope to take over the position of the clan leader. Sigh, now that the great calamity is coming, geniuses are like a geyser. Not only our human clan, but our Yi clan also has many geniuses. Even in other clans, there are countless geniuses. In this way, I'm worried that when the great calamity really comes, it will be a terrible calamity. It shouldn't be. Our human clan is different from countless years ago. Our foundation is naturally incomparably deep. Moreover, because of this, didn't we old guys also break through the realm one after another? The pros and cons are mixed. It's not necessarily good or bad. Continue to watch. Is this kid also from RE clan? I really don't know him. I feel that every time I wake up from closed-door training, a large number of geniuses from RE clan will appear. Well, at the critical moment, I'll take action later. We can't let the guys from the Beishan clan be arrogant on our side. But what's going on? Secret Realm number 1 has never been open to outsiders. Why did it open this time and let a bunch of people in? When the time comes, I want to ask for an explanation. And at this time, there was also a change in the field. Originally, Yi Shiwen had the upper hand. At this time, it seemed that the situation had been reversed. Beishan Shue's body emitted layers of 7-colored light. Circles of light swept out like waves, occupying half of the mountain. Yi Shiwen's clothes were fluttering in the wind, and the astral wind was making him feel pain. After summoning the 7-color heavenly armor, the power of Beishan Shue's whole body skyrocketed. Like a ghost, he approached Yi Shiwen step by step. Every step could cause the laws of heaven and earth to fluctuate violently, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was like boiling water, boiling. Under the control of this mysterious 7-colored light, he seemed to have opened a domain, and he was the only monarch in this domain. As time passed, the aura of Beishan Shue's body became more and more tyrannical, and also more and more stable. A powerful aura that belonged to the overlord of the celestial realm shot out, firmly suppressing Yi Shiwen, as if to completely crush him to death. Yi Shiwen stood motionless. His stature was as straight as a spear. No matter how the wind blew or how the rain fell, he wouldn't move in the slightest. Not far behind him, Kuan Peng also seemed to feel this kind of pressure. It pointed at Beishan Shue in the sky and cursed in bird language. Boom! At this time, Beishan Shue finally moved. He went straight to the point and directly grabbed Yi Shiwen with his palm. He wanted to grab Yi Shiwen to death. His martial power had suddenly improved a lot. Compared to a moment ago, it was simply incomparable. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen opened his eyes, and 2 rays of light appeared in his eyes. This is the 7-color divine robe. I didn't expect the 7-color divine robe to have such a use. And it can even evolve into the 7-color heavenly armor. Yi Shiwen said in amazement. How could he not see the 7-color divine robe? Many high-level members of the Beishan clan also had the 7-color divine robe, but he had never seen anyone use the 7-color divine robe to such a superb level. Compared with Beishan Shue, the previous Beishan Shue, North Mountain Ling, and others were simply trash. Beishan Shue's grasp was getting closer and closer, and at this time, Yi Shiwen finally moved. Chapter 1637. He also reached out with one hand, which turned into a monstrous dragon claw. It was as if it covered the sky and the sun, and it clawed out directly. A faint dragon roar could be heard. Do you think I'm still the same as before? You want to stop me with such a move? Beishan Shue snorted coldly. Like a thunderclap, he stepped in all directions and increased his strength. There were countless martial arts manuals in his big hand, and endless martial arts mysteries were rolling in it. It was the embodiment of his martial arts will. Boom! It was another earth-shattering collision. It was an exceptionally terrifying collision. The 2 huge hands collided fiercely in the void. Endless colorful rays of light and golden light splashed out in the void. Each drop of light could penetrate the entire space. Although the human secret realm had been reinforced, it definitely could not withstand such a battle of the celestial realm. There were not many experts of this level even in the Yi family, let alone in the human secret realm. The number 1 secret realm was not open to the public. If the battle had already reached this level, it meant that the enemy had completely defeated the Yi family. A large area of the space collapsed. Both of them took a few steps back. They were actually evenly matched, and they were not inferior to each other at all. Evenly matched. Beishan Shue suddenly felt a little incredulous. Evenly matched? How can it be evenly matched? After I used the rainbow heavenly armor, my strength increased by more than a little. Forget about it just now. How can he still be evenly matched with me now? His strength has actually increased. At this time, he suddenly realized this problem. Compared to just now, Yi Shiwen's strength had obviously increased tremendously. Just now, he did not take Yi Shiwen seriously at all, so he did not pay much attention to Yi Shiwen's changes. But when he really sank his heart to feel it, he suddenly realized that Yi Shiwen's aura was actually increasing all the time. Although this kind of increase every second was not very obvious, it was quite considerable when accumulated. And he actually did not notice it at all just now. Or perhaps, as Brother Feng said, Yi Shiwen was constantly consolidating his own realm. In other words, this wasn't Yi Shiwen's strongest fighting state. He was still getting stronger and stronger. He would never be able to know how long Yi Shiwen had been preparing for this breakthrough. He had been preparing for 10 years. This had made his foundation exceptionally deep. It was very difficult for him to make a breakthrough. However, he would become unimaginably tyrannical once he made a breakthrough. Over the past 10 years, he did not know how much dragon chi and spirit chi he had absorbed from the dragon vein. His foundation was so deep that even he could not figure it out. Yi Shiwen's aura was rising bit by bit. After forcing back the first wave of Beishan Shue's attack, his body began to glow with seven-colored light. The seven-colored divine robe appeared on his body. Then he said faintly, "I have the seven-colored divine robe, but I didn't expect it to have such a transformation." "Impossible! How could you have the seven-colored robe?" Beishan Shue exclaimed in disbelief. Suddenly, he came to a realization. He suddenly remembered something. In the Yi family, there is a seven-colored divine robe. "You are Yi Shiwen. You are Yi Shiwen." He suddenly reacted. At this time, this was the only possibility. The seven-colored divine robe that was once left behind. His words immediately attracted the attention of Brother Phoenix. Brother Phoenix was originally watching the battle between the two in a relatively leisurely manner. However, when he heard the name Yi Shiwen, his eyes suddenly lit up. As if he had thought of something, his gaze was like that of a ferocious beast. In an instant, he stared at Yi Shiwen. If his gaze was still on young Kuan Peng before, then now, he was completely focused on Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, young Kuan Peng, who was previously very concerned and determined to win, suddenly had no way to attract his attention. Yi Shiwen. He is Yi Shiwen. He looked at Yi Shiwen with an inexplicable light in his eyes. On the other side, Beishan Shue finally reacted after realizing that Yi Shiwen's aura was still rising and his strength was still constantly improving. He absolutely could not let Yi Shiwen continue to grow. Otherwise, he might not be able to completely suppress Yi Shiwen when the time came. At this time, he let out a loud roar. A terrifying power leaped out of his body. He, who was wearing the seven-colored heavenly armor, was much more tyrannical than before. His whole body erupted with destructive power. In one breath, a tyrannical sword light pierced the sky and rushed straight to the ninth heaven, pouncing on Yi Shiwen. "Break for me!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and rushed forward fearlessly. Not to mention that he had already entered the tyrant body of the Great Accomplishment Realm. He was also wearing the seven-colored divine clothes. This was the best protection. He directly spread out his big hand and suppressed all directions. In the palm of his hand, endless laws were surging. This was his understanding of martial arts, and he suppressed the sword light on the spot. Boom! After a terrifying explosion, the entire void collapsed from the explosion. The terrifying power was completely boiling in Yi Shiwen's hand, but his big hand was like a huge cage, completely containing this terrifying power in his hand. There was not a trace of leakage. So powerful. Did I see it wrong? This Yi Shiwen can actually challenge an expert of the heaven realm. This Beishan Shue is already the best of the younger generation of the Beishan clan, but in front of Yi Shiwen, who has just broken through to the 7th level of the heaven realm, he can't gain the slightest advantage. This Yi Shiwen is so powerful. In the secret territory, everyone was completely shocked as if they had seen the most incredible thing. Especially those who came with Beishan Shue. it was even more unimaginable. They were very clear about Beishan Shue's strength. It could even be said that in their hearts, Beishan Shue was like a legendary god, and it was impossible for anyone to defeat him. Even Brother Feng, who Beishan Shue respected so much, they didn't take it to heart. They only felt that Beishan Shue should respect him so much because of his identity. It didn't mean that Beishan Shue was inferior to anyone. But now, this Yi Shiwen who suddenly appeared from the Yi clan was actually so amazing and terrifying. They finally found out Yi Shiwen's reputation from their dusty memories, but that was all. The legend of Yi Shiwen was still how he defeated an expert of the 9th level of the Heaven Realm a long time ago. As for what the current situation was, no one knew. This Yi Shiwen did not come out for a long time, but when he did, he completely shocked the world with a brilliant feat. Beishan Shue's expression suddenly changed slightly. His offensive was completely suppressed, or rather, his offensive could not form a completely overwhelming advantage. In front of Yi Shiwen, it could not form a complete suppression effect. And without waiting for him to continue thinking, Yi Shiwen's next wave of offensive had swept over in an instant. His big hand directly swept over from the sky. This big hand contained sword techniques, fist techniques, and palm techniques. It was all-encompassing, like a martial arts master, and fiercely pressed towards Beishan Shue. Beishan Shue's expression changed, but his reaction was not slow at all. Clang! In his hand, a long sword instantly condensed into shape, and then this long sword with lightning speed slashed towards Yi Shiwen's big hand. Brother Feng looked at Yi Shiwen's figure with a gloomy expression, seemingly hesitating whether to intervene or not. But before he could make a decision, Yi Shiwen had already fought with Beishan Shue. Yi Shiwen's big hand and Beishan Shue's sword light, Tianyuan sword technique, finally collided together, and a shocking explosion instantly swept out. With the two as the center, the space within a radius of 1,000 miles was completely turned into powder, and even the space further away had cracks appearing. The power of the aftermath of the fight between the two was evident. Yi Shiwen had retreated 5 steps, but Beishan Shue had retreated 6 steps. In such a short period of time, the difference in strength between the two sides had once again undergone a dramatic change. They had been evenly matched at first, but now, Yi Shiwen had gained the upper hand, and all of this had happened in just a short period of time. Yi Shiwen's aura was still constantly rising. The accumulation of 10 years was fully manifested at this time. So even though he had entered the 7th level of Celestial Realm, he did not stop. On the contrary, the countless real elemental energy in his body was still constantly scouring, pushing him all the way to the peak of the 7th level of Celestial Realm. But this needed time, so his strength was constantly improving, becoming stronger little by little. In particular, the fight between the two had intensified the energy refining in Yi Shiwen's body. Now, Yi Shiwen's body was like an empty pool, crazily absorbing energy, filling up the pool. However, there were several dragon veins in Tianyuan Mirror, so he was not afraid of not having enough energy to replenish it. It was precisely because of the existence of the dragon veins that Yi Shiwen did not need to rely on external energy absorption. So although he was constantly breaking through, the movement was very small to the outside world. Even Beishan Shue, who was fighting with him head-on, had only barely discovered at this time that Yi Shiwen was actually still constantly growing stronger. He had not yet completely consolidated his realm, not to mention the others. Even those below the Celestial Realm did not even realize what was happening. They still did not understand how Yi Shiwen and Beishan Shue were evenly matched before. How could there be such a big change in such a short period of time, suddenly becoming Yi Shiwen having the upper hand? While everyone was still puzzled, Yi Shiwen had already rushed forward impatiently. Chapter 1638. Pung! 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 In an instant, both sides clashed hundreds, thousands of times. They attacked like lightning. Fast! 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 Their combat strength had already stepped into the Heaven Realm. In the entire ancient Barrens continent, they could be called overlords of a generation. The terrifying scene caused the faces of the Yi family geniuses to turn ashen white. Although they knew that the main family had many Celestial Realm experts, they had never seen a Celestial Realm expert attack. Moreover, they went all out. Although their combat strength and range were limited to the initial Heaven Realm, to them, this was already a godlike existence that they had to look up to. Every time they exchanged blows, the void would shatter. Due to the speed at which they exchanged blows, the void did not have the time to repair itself. As a result, the void within the range of their exchange was in a state of constant shattering. Chaos poured out from within. Frightening shockwaves swept out in circles, bringing with them a frightening might that engulfed the area. Yi Shiwen's aura didn't decrease, and the more he fought, the stronger he became. Senior brother Yi Kuang. Will senior brother Yi Shiwen be fine if this goes on? After all, he is only at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm. No matter how I look at it, it's not worth it to fight a Heaven Realm expert, someone asked. At this time, only a few Heaven Realm experts could see the exact situation of the battle. They could see a little, but they needed time to react. Many people were worried that Yi Shiwen would not be able to hold on. After all, in everyone's impression, the gap between the Celestial Realm and the Celestial Realm was simply like the gap between heaven and earth. This was completely different from the feeling of Yi Shiwen defeating a Celestial Realm expert at the 6th Celestial Realm. Although that was shocking, it was still within the range of everyone's understanding. Now, it had indeed exceeded the range of everyone's understanding. His strength is complete. Yi Kuang looked at Yi Shiwen with a complicated expression. Originally, he thought that Yi Shiwen had been left far behind by them. Until now, there hadn't been any news of him stepping into the Heaven Realm. Now, it seemed like he had underestimated Yi Shiwen. In fact, everyone had underestimated Yi Shiwen. Along with his combat strength reaching Celestial Realm, his position in the Yi family and even the human race was totally different. Although they didn't know how he did it, it wasn't important anymore. In the eyes of those who hadn't stepped into the Celestial Realm, Beishan Shui actually had the upper hand in this battle. Beishan Shui was at ease while Yi Shiwen was like a maniac. In the eyes of ordinary people, Yi Shiwen was challenging a Celestial Realm expert at the 7th level of Celestial Realm. If he wasn't crazy, how could he block the opponent's attack? They also understood the principle of not becoming a demon without going crazy. If they were forced to a dead end, they would most likely have the same mentality. However, in the eyes of a master like Yi Kuang, it was a completely different story. Yi Shiwen's imposing aura was like a rainbow, and his strength was increasing every minute and second. Unexpectedly, he had completely suppressed Beishan Shui. Beishan Shui seemed to be at ease, but her offensive power was suppressed within a certain range, unable to spread out. Yi Shiwen seemed to be very anxious, but in fact, he was the one who truly grasped the initiative. As time passed, Yi Shiwen's aura continued to rise, and he completely grasped the initiative. Unbelievable. He actually used Beishan Shui to test his strength, Yi Kuang said in disbelief. He slowly and finally saw that Yi Shiwen was using Beishan Shui bit by bit to familiarize himself with the combat strength of a Celestial Realm expert. This completely surpassed all the levels of power that he could come into contact with before. Even someone as monstrous as Yi Shiwen couldn't control this level of power in one go. So, he actually used Beishan Shui as a sparring partner. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but have a strange feeling rise in his heart. Using a Celestial Realm expert as a sparring partner, how many people could do this? Not to mention how many people could do it, just how many people dared to think about it was a huge problem. What? Impossible in a battle like this? Yi Shiwen is actually just testing his strength? If that's the case, then it's too scary. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen, who hasn't had any news for 10 years, would suddenly become so scary? It's simply unbelievable. Many people were instantly shocked. If it was someone else who said this, they naturally wouldn't believe it, but the person who said this was Yi Kuang, an overlord of the Celestial Realm. Nonsense, how is that possible? Beishan Shui's strength is superb, and he is a Celestial Realm expert. Although I don't know what kind of evil method your Yi Shiwen used to have his current combat strength, but to challenge a Celestial Realm expert at the 7th level of the Celestial Realm, how can he expect to last long? As long as time passes, that evil method will be broken, and then he will die. Some of the experts that Beishan Shui brought didn't believe it at all, or rather, didn't dare to believe it. Facing these people, Yi Kuang couldn't even be bothered to say another word. Summer insects can't talk about ice. What did these people know? Not only Yi Kuang, but even Brother Feng, who had a contemptuous look on his face, seemed to be looking at Yi Shiwen with a strange look in his eyes. This kid was not simple, and was much more tyrannical than he had imagined. The combat strength of Beishan Shui, who used the rainbow heavenly armor, was already much stronger than before. Although it wasn't as strong as his level, it couldn't be considered weak either. In the end, he was completely restricted by Yi Shiwen within a certain range, and fought very sullenly. This was not something that ordinary people could do. But he wasn't nervous at all. Instead, he became even more excited. This was Yi Shiwen, Yi Shiwen. This was a little interesting. If it was an ant that couldn't resist, even if it was trampled to death, there was nothing to be happy about. The more powerful one was, the more he liked to see the despair in their eyes when they were defeated by him in the end. Moreover, this person was Yi Shiwen, and in the Heaven's secret realm, there were also a few old antiques constantly exchanging their divine senses. This junior is called Yi Shiwen, right? The younger generation will surpass us in time. In the past, I only knew that Yi Su Kong was the leader of this generation, followed by Yi Kuang and Yi Qiu. But I didn't think that there would be such a strong person hidden. With the cultivation of the seventh sky of the celestial realm, this kind of strength, even in the distant past, was a shocking thing. Isn't that so? For the Yi clan, having such a top genius is undoubtedly a blessing. With the growth of this generation of young masters, there is less and less room for us, the older generation, to move around. It's really the case that the waves behind drive on the waves before, and each generation is stronger than the last. In the field, Beishan Shui was constantly being suppressed by Yi Shiwen, but he couldn't fight back. It was very strenuous for him to fight. His eyes flashed with a look of horror. He had never encountered such a difficult opponent. He relied on the seven-colored sky armor. Even if it was only in the form of the seven-colored godly robe, it was much more tyrannical than many people. It was difficult to find an opponent who could rival him among the same generation. One person could defeat 10 people. No matter how powerful the enemy was, it was difficult to break his seven-colored sky armor, and even his seven-colored godly robe could not be broken. But he didn't expect that this Yi Shiwen was even more unscrupulous than him. Wearing the seven-colored godly robe that was stolen from the Beishan clan, he ran amok, and once he attacked, the sky would shatter. It was extremely terrifying. His fist technique, his palm technique, as soon as he attacked, it was filled with the profound meaning of martial arts, profound and terrifying. He couldn't even imagine how Yi Shiwen, who was only at the 7th level of Celestial Realm, could have such profound martial arts comprehension. No matter how he thought about it, it was impossible, and it was also an unscientific thing. In the field, he understood the horror of this crazy man more than anyone else, and he seemed to be at ease. But if he looked carefully, he would find that his defensive circle was also being forced by Yi Shiwen to become smaller and smaller, and the circle that he could freely use was also becoming smaller and smaller. More and more aggrieved, and in contrast, Yi Shiwen's aura was still constantly rising, and every time Yi Shiwen's aura rose a little, his defensive circle was also a little smaller. It could be said that in the process of continuous decline, this speed was astonishing. Yi Kuang and Brother Feng were able to see things clearly, but Yi Shiwen was also able to see that Yi Shiwen was simply using him as a sparring partner. Although this was only his guess, but as the battle continued, Yi Shiwen's strength continued to rise. It seemed that he was becoming more and more proficient in all aspects of this realm and his understanding of the various aspects of this realm. And as he became more and more proficient, the process of continuous improvement of his strength also accelerated. This process was like boiling a frog in warm water. He had the support of the ling qi of the dragon vein in his body, so his movements were very small. Otherwise, Beishan Shui wouldn't have noticed it just now. But when he realized it, it was already too late. If at the beginning, Yi Shiwen's strength was only comparable to his, Then even if he became stronger, it was only a little stronger, and he still had a way to break free. But now it was different. He had been completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen, and it was impossible to escape. After all, this was the home field of Yi family, not their Beishan clan. There would not be an old monster to support him. At this time, he began to sincerely regret in his heart. Why did he have to wade in this muddy water? This matter had nothing to do with him, but he had to participate in it. He had too blindly believed in his own strength and did not want to encounter a monster. Warm up, it's over. Chapter 1639. As a Heaven Realm expert and the overlord of the ancient Barrens continent, he was confident that he could escape no matter where he went. However, he didn't expect to fall into Yi Shiwen's strategy of boiling a frog in warm water. Warm-up is over. He heard Yi Shiwen's relaxed voice from the opposite side. The muscles on Yi Shiwen's body began to vibrate. A powerful force was boiling in his body, and the bones all over his body began to crackle. It was as if he had been reborn, especially compared to when he first appeared. At that time, he was like a child with the power of an adult. He couldn't control his power at all. Although his punches and kicks contained great power, they were also somewhat wasteful. He could achieve the effect that could be achieved with only 10% of his power, but he had to use 20% or even 30% of his power to achieve it. However, as time passed, such situations became rarer and rarer. He had truly mastered his own power, and every punch and kick was ingenious. This was what Beishan Shui feared the most. Whether an expert was powerful or not, of course, depended on how much power he had. However, there was another very important point, and that was how much power he could exert. Whether it was more or less was not a good thing. Only when it was just right would it be the best. Although Yi Shiwen's power was still increasing, he had completely adapted to this level of power. He wouldn't perform like he did just now. What? So fast? Beishan Shui was shocked. Even Brother Feng and Yi Kuang, who were not far away, were abnormally surprised, especially Yi Kuang. His eyes were filled with inexplicable horror, because this was the second time he saw Yi Shiwen's shocking improvement. Last time, he was Yi Shiwen's opponent. He could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen consolidated his realm in a very short time. Yi Shiwen then became a powerful existence that could compete with him. This time, as a bystander, he could see it more clearly. At the same time, he was even more shocked. At this time, he could only describe it as a golden scale. Yi Shiwen repelled Beishan Shui's attack with his fist, and almost in a flash, his other hand grasped the air, and a powerful force flew across the sky towards Beishan Shui to grab her. Damn it, break for me! At this moment, Beishan Shui let out a series of furious roars. Sword after sword light swept out. Every sword light could sweep out tens of kilometers, shattering everything in its path. Clang, clang, clang. A violent sound was heard, followed by a huge explosion. The sword light fiercely chopped Yi Shiwen's big hand, setting off an endless storm. However, it couldn't stop the advance of Yi Shiwen's big hand in the slightest. His big hand erupted with 7 colored rays of light and golden divine rays of light in succession, and blocked these sword lights. His body was truly tyrannical to an unimaginable extent. His big hand suddenly clawed towards the void and grabbed towards Beishan Shui's body. Bang! Beishan Shui was caught unprepared. She had no time to dodge and was caught by Yi Shiwen on the spot. Damn it, how could he be so fast? Beishan Shui roared angrily. In his heart, he was completely shocked. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be so fast. He was so fast that it was impossible for him to tear the void to escape. This was also related to the fact that the space in Secret Territory Number 1 was extremely difficult to tear. This was the place where the younger generation of the Yi family gathered, and absolutely no accidents were allowed. Therefore, the space here had also been strengthened countless times, and it wouldn't allow the space to be torn. If it was so easy to tear, someone might come in unknowingly. But even so, it couldn't hide the fact that Yi Shiwen's attack was as fast as lightning. It was fast, so fast that it was unparalleled. Even a celestial realm expert like him couldn't react in time. Open for me! Beishan Shui roared angrily. A powerful force erupted from his body, instantly sweeping out in all directions, forming a huge energy storm that wanted to break Yi Shiwen's big hand. It's useless. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. His big hand directly closed. The endless energy in his big hand churned and exploded, but there was no way to escape from Yi Shiwen's big hand that was like a cage. On the contrary, the terrifying power churned within, and it even injured Beishan Shui, who was wearing the rainbow sky armor. Ah! Suddenly, Beishan Shui let out a blood-curdling scream that shook the entire Secret Realm #1. The seven-colored heavenly armor that he was wearing was suddenly stripped away by Yi Shiwen. After leaving Beishan Shui's body, the seven-colored heavenly armor had become an ordinary seven-colored divine robe. Although its defensive effect was still extraordinary, it was still incomparable to the seven-colored heavenly armor that could comprehensively enhance the power of a celestial realm expert. As expected, this needs to be combined with a special cultivation method to become the rainbow sky armor, Yi Shiwen said with narrowed eyes. Beishan Shui, who was in his big hand, screamed. After being stripped of the rainbow sky armor, his body was covered in blood. This was because to cultivate the rainbow sky armor, one had to first refine the rainbow godly robe into one's body. This was the only way to cultivate it. At this moment, being stripped of the rainbow sky armor was equivalent to being forcefully ripped out of his body. His flesh was a mess. Moreover, after losing the rainbow sky armor, his power was greatly reduced. His strength also plummeted, and he was no longer as heroic as before when he was able to fight against Yi Shiwen. Looking at this scene, everyone was stunned. They didn't dare to believe it. What happened? In such a short period of time, the change suddenly happened. It happened in an instant, without any warning, especially in the eyes of those experts below the celestial realm. Weren't the two of them fighting on equal footing? How did Yi Shiwen become so strong all of a sudden? In their eyes, there was almost no process of transformation between strong and weak. It seemed that Yi Shiwen had been hiding his strength all along, and suddenly burst out to suppress Beishan Shui, who had the seven-colored heavenly armor. What's going on? Did I miss something just now? How did Yi Shiwen suddenly become so strong? It looks too unbelievable. Could it be that Yi Shiwen had been hiding his strength all this while? Then he lured Beishan Shui to make a move, and then gave him a thunderous blow? So strong. What did Yi Shiwen experience in these 10 years? How could he suddenly become so strong? Everyone in the Yi family started discussing. They didn't dare to believe that Yi Shiwen had actually become so strong. However, the ones who truly found it hard to believe were the experts that Beishan Shui had brought with him. Many of them were his followers and admirers. Many of them already viewed Beishan Shui as a true god, omnipotent and undefeatable. Although Beishan Shui didn't have the upper hand just now, at least in their eyes, he wasn't at a disadvantage. How did everything suddenly change? The two of them, who were originally evenly matched, instantly decided the victor. This is impossible. I don't believe it. I must have seen wrongly. Illusion. This must be an illusion. How could Lord Shui lose? This is impossible. Hoax. This is a hoax of the Yi family through and through. Ah! Beishan Shui screamed again. Yi Shiwen's big hand tightened. His body was being squeezed by Yi Shiwen. Brother Feng, save me. At this time, he had no choice but to ask Brother Feng for help. Whoosh! A fiery red sword light descended from the sky and slashed down fiercely with lightning speed. The big cheek-condensed hand that Yi Shiwen had drawn was slashed by this fiery red sword light on the spot. It was directly cut into two halves on the spot, and then it burned fiercely. A sword light came out and directly broke Beishan Shui's siege. At this time, Beishan Shui barely had a chance to breathe. He quickly retreated and escaped from the battlefield. His eyes were full of horror as he looked at Yi Shiwen. He had never suffered such a big loss before. He was almost crushed to death by Yi Shiwen's hands. Without the seven-colored heavenly armor, his essence, qi, and spirit had dropped by several levels. The seven-colored heavenly armor had been stripped from his body, especially the crushing defeat just now. For him, It was like a nightmare. If it wasn't for Brother Feng just now, the outcome would be unpredictable. His body was originally dripping with blood, but at this time, it began to recover quickly. The blood that originally flowed out also turned into pieces of scars and then slid down from his body. He had returned to his original appearance, but he no longer had the arrogant look he had when he first came. Especially the despising eyes of the Yi family. It made him crazy, but he didn't dare to make a move. Yi Kuang on the side looked at him covetously. Without the seven-colored heavenly armor, his confidence had also dropped by several levels. He no longer dared to say that he could defeat Yi Kuang. And at this time, in the battlefield, Yi Shiwen, who everyone had been waiting for a long time, finally faced the culprit who directly destroyed his #1 secret realm, Brother Feng. This Brother Feng stood in the void with his arms crossed. His eyes were unusually cold, and he looked at Yi Shiwen coldly, as if he was looking at a dead person. It seemed that he was sure that Yi Shiwen was going to die. Just now I finished warming up. Now, let's properly calculate your sin for destroying my secret realm. Yi Shiwen said lightly. Sin, in this world, there are people who can convict me, but unfortunately, it's not your human race, and it's not you. The corner of this Brother Feng's mouth slightly raised, revealing a somewhat sarcastic smile, as if Yi Shiwen had done the most overconfident thing. Ridiculous, very ridiculous. I don't care who convicts you, but you have to pay the price for destroying my secret realm. No one can provoke me without paying the price. Yi Shiwen said. Chapter 1640. Brother Feng just glanced at Yi Shiwen and said, The Kuan Peng beside you is not something you can have. Hand it over, and I will write off your offense today. Are you crazy? Yi Shiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Brother Feng and said, Today, you bullied me and destroyed my secret territory. How dare you say that? If you're not crazy, then you must have lost your mind. What? What did you say? Brother Feng suddenly said angrily, I thought you only have a mental problem. I didn't expect you to have a problem with your ears. Yi Shiwen said with a smile, I think you are really tired of living. Brother Feng said coldly, You don't believe me when I say that you are crazy. This is our Yi family's territory. Who is tired of living? Yi Shiwen looked at Brother Feng and said. At this time, the people of Yi clan also burst into laughter, especially those experts who had come with Yi Kuang. They had long been sick of Brother Feng's arrogance. They were no match for him, but if Yi Shiwen could teach him a big lesson, then it would be for the best. This would let him know where he was. This was the Yi family's territory. An outsider like him could not be arrogant. If I want to kill someone, no one can stop me even at the end of the world. Not to mention a trivial Yi family. With your lowly identity, you are not worthy to have a Kuan Peng. Brother Feng said coldly, Whether I am worthy or not, we will know after we fight. Also, do you dare to tell me your name? Let me see what kind of bastard you are. Yi Shiwen was not angry. He would not get angry because of this level of words. That would be too ridiculous. Hearing the two words, Kuan Peng, Brother Feng's body suddenly flashed a trace of a terrifying aura. He looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, I think you really don't want to live. I will tell you, I am Phoenix Sect. Phoenix Sect. A name flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind like lightning. A dusty memory emerged. The scene of him being easily crushed like an ant on that day came to his mind again. Boom! An extremely powerful force swept out from his body in an instant, spreading out layer by layer. The space around him collapsed layer by layer just because of the force that swept out from his body. It was incomparably terrifying when one looked at it. A terrifying aura swept out like a storm. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen in astonishment. Yi Shiwen had been smiling just now. Even when facing the Phoenix Sect's contempt, he didn't bat an eyelid. Why did he suddenly change after hearing this name? That formidable aura was mixed with a terrifying, murderous aura. Even when Yi Shiwen had just defeated Beishan Shui, he didn't have much murderous aura, but when he heard these two words, he became so excited. Such a terrifying, murderous aura burst out. Could it be that they had a grudge against each other before? Yi Kuang recalled that Phoenix sect had once said that they had come for Yi Xuan. Phoenix sect. Let me ask you, what is the relationship between you and Feng Ling? Yi Xuan's voice was somewhat hoarse, as if he was restraining some kind of impulse in his body. A mere loser doesn't have the right to know. The Phoenix sect was as arrogant as a god. They didn't put Yi Xuan in their eyes, even though they were in the Yi clan. All right, if you don't want to say it, then I'll beat you until you speak. You'll regret it. You'll regret appearing in front of me. Yi Xuan's eyes began to turn red, and a tyrannical aura began to sweep out from his body. If one were to close their eyes, they might even think that this was a huge and peerless ominous beast. It was very terrifying. Bluffing. Do you think I'm Beishan Shui? The Phoenix sect said bluntly. Not far away, Beishan Shui also had an awkward expression, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, he realized that no matter who it was, all of them had strength above him. Forget about the Phoenix sect. Just Yi Xuan alone had a terrifying strength that made him tremble with fear. Especially Yi Xuan's current fighting posture. It was something he had never seen before. In other words, Yi Xuan hadn't used his full strength at all. Thinking of this, his face alternated between green and white. He originally thought that he was the most outstanding person in this generation. Yi Kuang, Yi Qiong, and Yi Shukong weren't worthy of his attention at all. This time, he wanted to find Yi Shukong, who was the first to step into the heaven realm and made a name for himself, to fight. Who knew that Yi Xuan, who seemed to be past his prime, would beat him half to death. Even the Rainbow God's robe was taken away. Without the Rainbow God's robe, he naturally couldn't use the Rainbow Sky armor anymore. His strength would naturally drop by a level. At this moment, even Yi Kuang might not be a match for him. I'll let you see just how big the gap between you and me is. The Phoenix sect sneered and took a step forward. A long sword condensed from flames appeared in his hand. Using the law of fire to condense the law of sword, the Phoenix sect's cultivation had truly reached an unimaginable level. Whoosh! The flaming long sword in his hand slashed down like lightning, shattering the entire space and turning it into dust. His long sword carried an incomparably terrifying flame, and wherever it passed, the entire sky would collapse. He was good at the law of fire, but he merged it into the law of sword, displaying far greater strength than 1+1. Yi Xuan also didn't show any weakness. He shot his palm, and boundless martial arts principles and profound meanings emerged from it. His entire hand looked very extraordinary. Dang! There was a sound of metal clashing. Be it Yi Xuan's hand or the flame sword in the Phoenix sect's hand, they were both as strong as metal. Both sides clashed intensely, causing an endless amount of energy to splatter out and instantly spread out. Yi Xuan took 2 steps back, but the Phoenix sect didn't move at all. The Phoenix sect had the upper hand in this exchange. With Yi Xuan's physical body, the Phoenix sect was able to gain the upper hand in a contest of strength. The Phoenix sect's strength was naturally much more tyrannical. In the initial celestial realm, he was strong enough. You're only SOSO. With such strength, you dare to act arrogantly in front of me. Die! The Phoenix sect laughed coldly. The flame sword in his hand shot out numerous sword energies. Everywhere was filled with specks of flames. At that moment, it was like a single spark had started a prairie fire. It formed a sweeping aura as it smashed towards Yi Xuan. It wasn't that Yi Xuan hadn't seen this kind of fusion of fire law and sword law. The Sun King Mu clan had many people like this. This included Mu Tianying. He was like a fish in water because he possessed the Sun King's sword. However, his attainments and skills were far inferior compared to the attainments and skills of the Phoenix sect. The sect Phoenix's speed was incomparably fast, and they were also very experienced in battle. They took advantage of the fact that Yi Xuan hadn't even had time to stand firm, and the next wave of attacks had already arrived. Rumble! The endless flame sword light smashed onto Yi Xuan's body. In the distance, everyone could only see that the place where Yi Xuan was standing had turned into a sea of flames. A small mushroom cloud slowly rose up from within. Senior brother Yi Xuan. Is Yi Xuan okay? Everyone was shocked at once. However, at that moment, within the small mushroom cloud, countless seven-colored rays of light shot out. Like a monstrous wave, it actually flattened the small mushroom cloud. At that moment, everyone saw Yi Shiwen's appearance. He was wearing a seven-colored robe, and his body kept shooting out seven-colored rays of light, protecting his entire body. He floated in the air with a cold expression. He was like a god. Facing such an attack, he didn't show any weakness. Seven-colored robe? What rubbish is that? Break it for me. At that moment, the Phoenix sect disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Yi Shiwen. His speed was so fast that it was like teleportation. However, everyone knew that it couldn't be teleportation because the entire space was reinforced. It could be broken, but it definitely couldn't be torn apart. These were two completely different concepts. In other words, this was the Phoenix sect speed. His speed was so fast that it could be called terrifying. Everyone exclaimed, because before the Phoenix sect finished speaking, the flaming longsword in his hand had already reached Yi Shiwen's neck. This sword didn't have any sword technique, and it didn't even have any manifestation of sword Dao law. There was only one word: fast. It was extremely fast. It didn't contain any impurities. Only in this way could he be so fast. Before Yi Shiwen could react, his entire head was about to be cut off. At this time, only Yi Kuang was able to remain calm in the field because he had personally witnessed Yi Shiwen's speed. Yi Kuang's own speed was extraordinary. His devil butterfly transformation was extremely fast in terms of teleportation. However, when facing Yi Shiwen, there was no way for him to suppress Yi Shiwen, and he was completely unable to do so. Only he knew that the Phoenix sect wouldn't be able to capture Yi Shiwen so easily. The Phoenix sect's face revealed a somewhat sinister smile, as if he could already see Yi Shiwen's death. At this critical moment, an ancient cauldron instantly appeared on the surface of Yi Shiwen's body, protecting his entire body within it. The 8-treasure universe cauldron that was condensed from endless qi was naturally not the main body. Using the main body at this time was equivalent to letting him destroy it. Bang! However, the 8-treasure universe cauldron that was condensed from qi didn't stop the Phoenix sect's longsword. It only caused him to pause for a moment before breaking through the 8-treasure universe cauldron's obstruction. "Do you think you can stop me with only this thing?" The Phoenix sect shouted. "This is enough. Eat my fist." Yi Shiwen seemed to have only reacted at this time. He was late, but his golden fist was waved like lightning. It directly rushed towards the Phoenix sect's head, wanting to directly smash his head into pieces. Chapter 1641. If Feng Zhong's speed was really fast, then Yi Shiwen's fist was even faster. His fist was like lightning and instantly arrived in front of Feng Zhong's fist. Feng Zhong's expression changed. His sword was about to reach Yi Shiwen's neck, but at the same time, Yi Shiwen's fist was about to reach his head. He didn't know whether or not his sword could slice off Yi Shiwen's head, but if he took that punch, his head would be like a watermelon that would be smashed into smithereens. Damn! This was a lunatic that wanted to perish together with him. At that moment, he made his decision. Shwa! Yi Shiwen's fist pierced through Feng Zhong. It didn't hit anything and only hit a ball of flames. Feng Zhong's body was already 1,000 meters away. His face was filled with shock. At the last moment, Feng Zhong didn't have the courage to trade with Yi Shiwen. Or rather, he didn't feel like he needed to trade with Yi Shiwen. He was such a noble being, and who was Yi Shiwen? Why did he have to trade with him? That wasn't worth it at all. Anyway, his strength was firmly suppressing Yi Shiwen. So, it was more than enough to deal with Yi Shiwen. Naturally, his attack didn't hit Yi Shiwen in the end. Yi Shiwen didn't say anything and just calmly looked at Feng Zhong. He laughed coldly. At the last crucial moment, Feng Zhong was more afraid of death than Yi Shiwen. The others, especially those below Celestial Realm, didn't even see what had happened. They only felt that in the blink of an eye, the two of them had clashed in terms of courage. Both sides were too quick, so quick that they didn't even have time to react before the battle ended. Only a few Celestial Realm experts were barely able to see the battle, and they couldn't help but feel like they were drenched in cold sweat. Just now, When the two of them clashed, they could have taken each other's life. When experts clashed, victory or defeat was decided in an instant. If Feng Zhong was willing to go all out, then the outcome would be that both sides would die. One move, and he would die. However, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen still had a trump card. It was his tyrant body. Even if the Phoenix Sect's sword could severely injure him, it wouldn't be able to kill him. However, he could still kill the Phoenix Sect with one punch. One for one? Even if the Phoenix Sect wanted to trade with him, Yi Shiwen wouldn't agree. Who did he think he was to trade with him? No one could see clearly what had happened, but it was clear that the Phoenix Sect had not gained any advantage over Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. Aren't you very proud? I think it's just so. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "You have a sharp tongue." However, a sharp tongue is useless at this time. What kind of person was Phoenix Sect? So, she naturally wouldn't be swayed by Yi Shiwen. Almost as soon as it stabilized its body, it immediately stabbed towards Yi Shiwen again. As soon as the sword was unleashed, the entire sky seemed to have fallen into a sea of fire. It triggered a riot of the flame laws in the entire space. All of a sudden, it burned towards Yi Shiwen. The sword light contained terrifying lethality, and it covered the sky and the earth. The sword went straight towards Yi Shiwen's face. It didn't give him the slightest time to react at all. The speed was even faster. A cold light arrived first. It directly pierced through space. Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change. A powerful aura boiled out of his body, evolving into layers of flame laws that protected his surroundings. At this time, Yi Shiwen also directly punched out. He blasted towards the sword. Although the sword was fast and extremely fast, Yi Shiwen's speed wasn't slow at all. It just happened to meet the attack. Boom! Both sides collided again. Yi Shiwen broke through the sky full of flames, but the sword light of the sword completely affected his body. A violent wave of energy constantly surged on Yi Shiwen's body. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Shiwen took a few steps back, and only then did he barely manage to dispel the incomparably powerful force brought by the sky-covering sword light. Although his own strength was great, there was indeed a disadvantage in terms of cultivation level. If he was just a regular level 7 Celestial Realm expert, he would probably have been ground to dust by the sword light. In the distance, many Celestial Realm and even Yi clan disciples below the Celestial Realm saw this scene, and their expressions all changed greatly. The aftermath of the battle between the two could suppress them to death. They didn't seem like mortals, but like gods. Yi Shiwen continuously retreated under his powerful strength. Although his strength had already surpassed Beishan Shui, there was still a huge gap between him and the Phoenix Sect. Terrifying strength that could dominate the early Celestial Realm was where the Phoenix Sect's true confidence lay. It was also the fundamental reason why the Phoenix Sect dared to attack after seeing Beishan Shui easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. It was just Beishan Shui. If she lost, then so be it. Yi Shiwen wasn't worthy of such fear. Moreover, with his status, even in the Yi clan's old nest, he would still be unbridled. You dare to be arrogant in front of me. See if I don't cripple you. He snorted coldly. Before his voice faded away, his figure had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. Then, he slashed his sword towards Yi Shiwen with a soaring sword light. He had fought hundreds of battles, and his battle experience could be said to be abnormally rich. With one glance, he could tell that Yi Shiwen was still at a stage where his footing was unstable. It could even be said that Yi Shiwen hadn't stabilized his footing yet, so he directly pounced at him at this moment. Taking advantage of the huge force that Yi Shiwen had just dispelled from the sword light, he swept forward once again. Yi Shiwen only had time to spread his hands, and a rainbow light burst out to protect him. Bang! Another extremely powerful force acted on him, and Yi Shiwen retreated again and again. In such a short period of time, the two of them exchanged blows again. Everyone in the Yi clan couldn't help but worry. Judging from the situation, it seemed that Yi Shiwen had completely fallen into a disadvantageous position. In fact, the situation looked even worse than the previous battle with Beishan Shui. Although many people felt that Yi Shiwen wasn't simple, in this situation, he was at an absolute disadvantage in all aspects. It seemed that it was impossible for him to turn the tables. At this time, even Yi Kuang couldn't see the outcome of the battle. In other words, his heart began to become pessimistic. However, although he also hated Yi Shiwen, he still hoped that Yi Shiwen could defeat the Phoenix clan. He had enough of Yi Shiwen's arrogance. Even a proud person like him could only be defeated in front of this arrogant Phoenix clan. The only person who was completely unaffected was probably this lawless and audacious Yi Shiwen. Even if Yi Shiwen knew something, he probably wouldn't be afraid. According to Yi Kuang's understanding, there was really nothing that Yi Shiwen couldn't do. He was simply a lawless person. As long as someone provoked him, even the Heavenly King would be beaten to the ground. Bang! 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 In an instant, the two sides had already exchanged thousands of blows. In the end, on the battlefield, Yi Shiwen kept retreating and retreating. Almost every time, he was blasted far away. The entire battlefield was also constantly shifting. If Yi Shiwen hadn't consciously controlled the scope of the battlefield, the entire human secret territory would have been completely destroyed. Even the Earth's secret territory wouldn't have been able to survive. Although there were many Celestial Realm experts in the Earth's secret territory, when faced with a battle between Celestial Realm experts, they probably wouldn't be of much use. Even in the Heaven's secret territory, only some old antiques had the ability to stop them. What should we do? Yi Shiwen looks like he can't hold on any longer, a Yi clan disciple said worriedly. Looking at the whole situation, Yi Shiwen didn't seem to have an advantage at all. Yeah, if this goes on, I'm afraid he'll be beaten to death by the Phoenix clan. Damn, can we only watch like this? Compared to the Yi clan disciples' worries, the experts that Beishan Shui brought were all gloating. Just now, Beishan Shui was defeated by Yi Shiwen, which made them completely lose face. At this time, how could they not mock him to their heart's content? He's dead. This Yi Shiwen. Does he really think he's unparalleled in the world? Yeah, I think he's only SOSO. He just used some evil method. This evil method must be burning his own life. Ignorant. In the face of these mockery, Yi Kuang just curled his lips in disdain. He couldn't be bothered to say anything more. He could see clearly whether it was an evil method or not. Although Yi Shiwen's body was constantly bursting with power that shouldn't be possessed by a 7th Celestial Realm expert, he was relying on his own power. The most terrifying thing was that he found that Yi Shiwen's foundation was simply terrifying. Generally speaking, the more shallow the foundation, the longer it would take to consolidate one's realm after a breakthrough. Moreover, it would be more difficult to master the power after a breakthrough, but Yi Shiwen actually used such a short time to completely consolidate his realm and master the power after a breakthrough. That was the power of a Celestial Realm expert. Last time, he also encountered such a situation, but at that time, he was in a state of anger and didn't see it as clearly as this time. The more he saw, the more he felt a chill run down his spine. At this time, he suddenly felt a little lucky facing such a powerful enemy. In these 10 years, he obeyed his master's orders and didn't find trouble with Yi Shiwen, even when he had just entered the Celestial Realm. Ordinary people could only see that Yi Shiwen was being beaten back step by step. The Phoenix clan's attacks were fierce, but he could see that even under such fierce attacks, Yi Shiwen actually didn't move at all. Chapter 1642. In other words, although the Phoenix sect had always wanted to break through Yi Shiwen's defense, no matter how fierce his attacks were, no matter how violent they were, there was no way to break through Yi Shiwen's center circle defense. In other words, there was no way to seriously injure Yi Shiwen, although it seemed like he was constantly being sent flying. In fact, it only looked serious. In fact, it wasn't that serious. The Phoenix sect had also discovered this problem. Although he could defeat Yi Shiwen, he couldn't kill Yi Shiwen. There was a gap between the two of them. However, Yi Shiwen's progress was extremely fast. Therefore, the gap between them was shrinking at an astonishing speed. In fact, it was slowly shrinking to the extent that even the Phoenix sect couldn't say with certainty that he could defeat Yi Shiwen. This was simply unimaginable for the Phoenix sect. Bang! Yi Shiwen was sent flying once, but a smile appeared on his face. He said, "Phoenix Grandmaster, what other tricks do you have? Use them. I want to see what you have." "Do you really think I can't do anything to you?" the Phoenix Grandmaster said coldly. "Isn't that so?" Yi Shiwen sneered and looked at the Phoenix Grandmaster. Although he couldn't hurt the Phoenix Grandmaster at the moment, it was also very difficult for the Phoenix Grandmaster to hurt him with the shocking power of the tyrant body. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago after being sent flying so many times. Even a Heaven Realm expert wouldn't be able to do that, let alone a level 7 Heaven Realm expert. The power of the tyrant body was displayed to the fullest. This time, the Phoenix Grandmaster did not say anything. Wave after wave of powerful flames burst forth from his body, and he spat them out. His entire being was like a volcano, constantly spitting out supreme flames. Those flames seemed to have turned into gods of fire, with fire spirits dancing within them. Voila! In an instant, the entire flame started burning. It instantly burned crazily, and everywhere it passed, the entire sky turned into ashes. This flame, we can't let it continue burning. Otherwise, the entire human secret realm will turn to ashes. At this moment, those Heaven Realm experts finally came to their senses and shouted. With everyone working together, they finally laid down a barrier to keep the flames within a certain range, not allowing them to burn out. Although he was still very far away, but he could already feel the amazing power of this flame. And this flame had a name. The Nanmingli fire was one of the most powerful and terrifying flames in the world. Crash! The flame turned into a tongue of flame and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. It was as fast as lightning and arrived in front of Yi Shiwen in an instant. Whoosh! The devil wings behind Yi Shiwen directly unfolded. Even he didn't dare to directly face it head-on. His figure turned into a golden light and disappeared on the spot. "Let's see where else you can hide," the Phoenix Grandmaster sneered. Under his command, these Nanming mythical fire burst forth with a powerful might and covered the entire sky, not allowing Yi Shiwen to escape. Like the waves of the sea, they swept out in circles. Even the stars in the sky would be burned to ashes in this sea of fire. This was the terrifying power of the Nanmingli fire. There was less and less space for Yi Shiwen to move around. Slowly, the flames caught up to him. Since they couldn't break through Yi Shiwen's defense, the Phoenix sect didn't bother. They just wanted to burn Yi Shiwen to ashes. Pong! Finally, the Nanmingli fire burned onto Yi Shiwen's body and caused a shocking explosion. Everyone only saw that Yi Shiwen had turned into a flaming person. They couldn't help but be shocked. Just as those Heaven Realm experts were prepared to attack, they saw that the sky full of Nanmingli fire was gathering towards Yi Shiwen at a shocking speed. In just a short moment, it was all sucked clean. Very quickly, Yi Shiwen's face was revealed. There were no signs of him being burned at all. What? How is that possible? Everyone was dumbfounded, including the Phoenix sect. They were all dumbfounded. If Yi Shiwen had used some method to forcefully resist it, it would have been fine. Everyone had their own trump card. Even if they didn't understand it, it wouldn't be surprising. However, Yi Shiwen had absorbed all the Nanmingli fire. Impossible. My Nanmingli fire has been refined to the extreme. How can he absorb it? Even if he is a lava creature, he will be burned to ashes. The Phoenix sect said in disbelief. He didn't hesitate and shot out with his sword again. It turned into a sky full of flames and burned everything. But just like before, Yi Shiwen quickly absorbed all the flames. It was as if the Nanmingli fire was just an ordinary flame that couldn't cause him any problems. The Phoenix sect didn't believe it. He kept blasting out Nanmingli fire, but each time, it was easily absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Finally, he stopped this useless effort because the Nanmingli fire in his body was refined by him. It wasn't endless, so he couldn't waste it like this. He held his sword and said coldly to Yi Shiwen, "You're using my Nanmingli fire to break through?" Yi Shiwen said coldly, "You actually saw through me. What a pity I was so close." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, countless flames suddenly burst out of his body. They burned fiercely on his body, making him look like a flame monarch. Moreover, all of them were Nanming Leaf fire. You can actually use Nanming Leaf fire. This is impossible. This is my clan's magical power. It's impossible for outsiders to learn it. Do you also have my clan's bloodline? The Phoenix sect looked at Yi Shiwen in shock. This was even more shocking than Yi Shiwen forcibly absorbing his Nanming Leaf fire. Don't be arrogant, Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. In his body, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram was rapidly refining the fire element. After the earth and water elements, the fire element was about to be completed. This 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram couldn't be refined with the ordinary 5 elements. But obviously, Nanming Leaf fire definitely met this condition. Among the mystical fires in the world, Nanming Leaf fire was definitely ranked in the top. Most importantly, he found that the mystical fire in his body was actually Nanming Leaf fire. He was able to smoothly absorb the Phoenix sect's Nanming Leaf fire, and this bit of Nanming Leaf fire had an inseparable relationship. This Nanming Leaf fire was rumored to be the magical power of the Phoenix clan. It was a natural magical power. It was impossible for outsiders to use and control it, but Yi Shiwen had already subdued a little Nanming Leaf fire a long time ago. The most important thing was that it could be constantly nourished and bred in his body. He didn't feel that there was any problem before, because almost all fire attribute techniques nurtured the flame in this way. Although each technique had its own profundities, in essence they were basically the same. But now that he thought about it, it wasn't right if it was the Nanming mythical fire. This was the magical power of the Phoenix race. Even in the Phoenix race, only pure-blooded phoenixes could use it. However, Yi Shiwen could use it without any hindrance. So, there was only one possibility: Phoenix regeneration technique. This was the only explanation that could explain why Yi Shiwen was able to use the Nanming Leaf fire, even though he wasn't a member of the Phoenix race. He had practiced Phoenix regeneration technique for hundreds of years. His physique, to a certain extent, had begun to be transformed to be similar to the Phoenix clan. Yi Shiwen didn't notice anything at first because this made his physical body more powerful, and his recovery ability was higher. Now that he thought about it, it must be because of Phoenix regeneration technique that he could control Nanming Leaf fire. He just constantly used Nanming Leaf fire to sacrificial refine the fire part of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. If he could continue, the fire element part would be quickly refined. At that time, the power of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram would surpass the shackles of a heaven-grade magic tool, and his strength would be greatly improved. But it was a pity that he was discovered by the Phoenix sect at the last moment. The remaining bit did not seem to be much, but if he wanted to complete it by himself, it would take a lot of time. It's a pity that I was so close. Otherwise, when I finished, suppressing you would be a piece of cake. Yi Shiwen sighed and said, "What a joke. Do you think you are my opponent? You are just the 7th level of Celestial Realm. What qualifications do you have to be so arrogant?" The Phoenix sect looked at him coldly. "I will let you know my true strength today." Boom! In an instant, countless tyrannical chi flew out of his body, and the laws completely appeared around him. Then, these chi began to burning in his Nanming Leaf fire, making his entire person feel like he was in a sea of fire. He was the god of fire. Yi Shiwen felt that the strength of the Phoenix sect had improved a lot. Because of the Nanming Leaf fire, the potential in his body was stimulated to erupt. Although his current strength was still enough to suppress Yi Shiwen, but he didn't want to delay any longer. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen in one go, so as to avoid any unexpected events. From the beginning, when he saw Yi Shiwen, he found that there were too many things that were beyond his expectations. No matter what means you have, in front of me, who is really serious, you are simply vulnerable. The Phoenix sect was really serious, and the aura of his body spread out in circles. Behind him, there was a faint cry of a phoenix. Chapter 1643. Countless flames started to burn around him. However, Yi Shiwen sensed a completely different aura of flame from it. It was definitely not just the Nanmingli fire. There were many other kinds of unusual flames that Yi Shiwen had never seen before. Moreover, they weren't ordinary varieties. This is so many types of flames. How did the Phoenix sect get them? Nanming mythical fire, glazed golden fire, netherworld ghost fire. Oh my god! Some knowledgeable celestial realm experts from the Yi family could not help but shout out in surprise when they saw so many flames. They could feel that any one of these flames possessed great power. Normally, it would be very good for a person who cultivated a fire attribute cultivation method to be able to collect any one of them and refine it, let alone so many strange flames. At a glance, they could distinguish more than 20 types of flames. Many people were instantly in disbelief. Just looking at so many flames was abnormally frightening. Compared to just one type of Nanming mythical fire, their power had increased by who knew how many times. For a moment, the sky was dark, and the sun and moon lost their light. All the laws in the world were completely submerged by the laws of fire. Flames became the only ruler in the sky. This is really terrifying. So many flames. Just being able to collect them is already terrifying enough. Many old experts could not help but change their expressions when they saw these flames. The Phoenix sect looked at Yi Shiwen with a cold smile and said, "Let's see how you resist." Whoosh! In an instant, the entire sky seemed like it was going to be the end of the world. Countless flames descended from the sky, as if they were going to destroy the world. These flames were all different, and every single one of them could burn through the entire sky. Furthermore, they all had different powers. Boom! 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 Countless flames covered the sky and swept over, leaving Yi Shiwen with no place to dodge. Then, they landed on Yi Shiwen's body. Every flame that landed on Yi Shiwen's body would cause a huge explosion. The aftermath of the explosion swept out wildly, and it was a shock wave that could destroy everything. "This is too terrifying," someone exclaimed, and his face instantly turned pale. Look, Yi Shiwen is actually not dead yet. Suddenly, someone discovered that Yi Shiwen hadn't died, even though he had been indiscriminately bombarded by all kinds of strange flames. He couldn't help but cry out in alarm. At this time, many people suddenly looked over. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen was in the midst of a cluster of strange flames. He was motionless like a mountain. In fact, he was even sitting cross-legged in meditation. Around him, bursts of golden light shone from all directions, helping him resist the attacks of these flames. These flames were actually unable to break through his golden light. Once a hole was blasted open, it would be filled by other golden lights. And at this time, above Yi Shiwen's head, a diagram was constantly hovering, floating up and down. Those flames were actually being absorbed into this diagram, one by one. Be it the glazed golden flame, the nether ghost flame, or the Nanmingli fire, all of them were absorbed by the map. None of them were lucky. What kind of diagram is that? What kind of instrument is that? It's actually so overbearing. Even these strange flames can't do anything to it. At this time, many people asked in amazement. They had never seen such a fierce instrument before. One must know that these strange flames were the flames that many people yearned to use to refine tools. Under these flames, any instrument would be like floating clouds, but this diagram could actually withstand the surprise attack of so many flames. Yi Kuang's eyesight was much more tyrannical than these people's. He could see that on Yi Shiwen's diagram, there was constantly some water light. No matter what kind of flames in front of this water light, they would be completely suppressed, unable to exert their power at all. He was incomparably stunned. What kind of water could actually suppress these strange flames? There was no doubt that it should also be a kind of strange water. And at this time, he suddenly caught a glimpse of not far away. When the young Kuan Peng was fleeing in all directions, its body was flashing with water light, exactly the same as Yi Shiwen's. He immediately understood what that was. Northern dark, frigid water. At this time, only the northern dark, frosty water could suppress all these strange flames. Imperceptibly, the water element itself restrained the fire element. Moreover, The northern dark frosty water was one of the most powerful types of water among the countless kinds of water. It was strong enough to compete with the Nanmingli fire. The five elements Qian Yuan diagram above Yi Shiwen's head constantly spewed out the northern dark frigid water, suppressing all these doubts. Yi Shiwen sneered. Although his physique was special and could completely absorb the Nanmingli fire, it did not mean that he had a way to deal with other strange flames. But it did not matter. He still had the northern dark frigid water, which was also one of the few tyrannical strange waters in the world, so he was not afraid of these strange flames. These strange flames were all absorbed into the five elements Qian Yuan diagram, all refined and absorbed again. Although the five elements Qian Yuan diagram was now very broken and had suffered heavy damage, it was after all a powerful existence that once surpassed a heaven-level instrument. Even these strange flames could be forcibly absorbed. You can actually resist my strange flames, Yi Shiwen. I have to admit that you really have some skills. Grandmaster Phoenix could not help but look at him in shock. What instrument is that? It can actually resist these strange flames. It's not simple either. Not simple. It's really not simple. It's far more than that. Yi Shiwen operated the qi in his body, and countless spirit crystals were violently burned, instilled into the five elements Qian Yuan diagram. Suddenly, the five elements Qian Yuan diagram grew bigger and bigger, and soon it had already soared to the size of half the sky. Then, a strong suction force leaped out from the five elements Qian Yuan diagram, and the power of the fire element was madly exerted. These strange flames that fell from the sky were all absorbed into it. You want to use my strange flames to sacrifice to your instrument? In your dreams. At this time, the Phoenix sect finally discovered Yi Shiwen's purpose. He was actually using his mystical flame to refine these instruments. He could not help but be so angry that his face turned red. He did not expect that the big move that he had carefully prepared would be useless in Yi Shiwen's hands. It was absorbed by his strange instrument. You only realize now? It's too late. Yi Shiwen's solemn voice sounded. He grabbed with his big hand, and the five elements Qian Yuan diagram that covered the sky was suddenly caught in his hand, and endless qi was instilled into it. Boom! On the five elements Qian Yuan diagram, a strong qi burst out from it, and the fire element of the five elements Qian Yuan diagram was finally completely sacrificed. As the earth, water, and fire elements were sacrificed one after another, the five elements Qian Yuan diagram suddenly changed by leaps and bounds, and compared to before, it was simply an earth-shaking change. When only the earth and water elements were sacrificed, the five elements Qian Yuan diagram could only be regarded as a top-level heaven-level instrument. But once the fire element was sacrificed, its power instantly surpassed that of a top-level heaven-level instrument, and it was completing a complete transformation. This was like a person breaking through from the celestial realm to the celestial realm, and compared to before, it was simply like the difference between clouds and mud. Let's see what other tricks you have without the mystical flames. And now, all of your mystical flames are useless against me, Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. In an instant, the five elements Qian Yuan diagram integrated into Yi Shiwen's body, and it turned into talismans that began to fuse with Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's aura also began to soar. Originally, it was a little worse than the Phoenix Grandmaster, but now, it was much more tyrannical than before. Whoosh! His body instantly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already behind the Phoenix Grandmaster. Just now, he was passively defending, but now, Yi Shiwen took the initiative to attack, and compared to before, he was much more tyrannical. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and suddenly, countless earth element, water element, and fire element laws turned into talismans, condensed into a mighty torrent, and surged towards the Phoenix Grandmaster. After refining the three elements of the five elements Qian Yuan diagram, Yi Shiwen's mastery and attainment of formlessness suddenly underwent earth-shaking changes. Compared to the beginning, his willpower could not be compared at all. In order to thank you for letting me complete the sacrificial refining, you should obediently lose for me, Yi Shiwen shouted and blasted out. Suddenly, Endless flames burst out of the Phoenix Grandmaster's body, and it turned into countless laws, directly blasting towards Yishiwen. The sword light was hidden within, and it was faintly discernible, cutting through the sky. The five elements Tao, any one of them is enough to cultivate for a lifetime. You are biting off more than you can chew. It seems like the five elements are fused, but in fact you have already walked a fork in the road, and you have an inner demon. You want to defeat me like this? You are delusional. The Phoenix Grandmaster roared, and sword aura constantly spewed out of his body, like a giant dragon, soaring into the sky. I walked a fork in the road? Don't you know that solitary yin does not grow, and solitary yang does not grow? The five elements restrain each other and give birth to all things. This is the true mystery of the supreme great Tao. What do you know? Yishiwen also shouted. This was a confrontation between the great Tao of both sides, and neither side gave way. They had their own understanding of formlessness. Boom! Yishiwen's talisman torrent and the Phoenix Grandmaster's flaming sword light collided in the void. Yishiwen's talisman torrent smashed the flaming sword light in an instant. The Phoenix Grandmaster's flaming sword light was completely restrained by Yishiwen's northern underworld cold water, and it was completely suppressed. Impossible, my understanding of the flame law is far above yours. How can I lose to you? The Phoenix Grandmaster looked at Yishiwen in disbelief. His flame law was completely restrained. He thought that he could rely on his flame law to dominate the world. In fact, even the experts of the water element Tao could not block his sword, but he did not expect to meet a monster like Yishiwen. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.